I'm actually going to have an unusual motion. I'd like to have a motion to hold off on accepting these minutes until the end. If we have time, I'd like to do some cleanup on the back of these minutes, some to-do items that Leanne has been dutifully carrying forward. I'd like to see if we can close those down. But I also don't want to run out of time for the conservation folks who have generously appeared tonight. So with that, I'd like to hold off a motion to accept the minutes until the end of this meeting. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to kick it off to the Harbor Master, Steve Moen, who everybody likes to see from the back, so stay as you are.
So the river dredging project, I spoke to the dredge captain today. There's about 175 feet left in Area A in a small swath, a small area, about 175 feet long, so they should be completing the dredge project tomorrow of Area A. Our intention is to move on to Area B with the funds that we have left and clean up that area as well. I had a meeting with Mike Mayo from Marshfield and Christine Player from CLE, or from FOF Engineering. So that is our plan.
So what percent, there was 858 total for the project, correct? Guys?
16 and change.
Yeah.
And how much do we have left over once we finish A, is what's estimated?
We still haven't gotten all the figures back from Christine and this week's count.
Yeah, we're still using the grant money currently. So the overage or the underage came from, we first surveyed it at 14,000 cubic yards. So when the contractor actually surveyed it, it was 12,000. So the towns are not going to pay him for 14,000 when he's removing 12,000.
Yeah.
So that $2,000 of money, $35, $40 cubic yard can be applied to Area B. So we'll keep on going down the river as far as we can.
So is that like $80,000, $100,000?
It's actually, well, the second pay record is done, so we have about, sitting on about 564 right now.
Mike's been doing all the
Okay.
pay records.
564. Well, that's, we still owe another pay rec, and we still have to close out Area A, so that may be 100, so maybe have 400,000 left.
And then there's some engineering money as well.
Yeah.
So if you guys have an estimate, what do you think, how much could we do in B?
Well, we can't do anything to Area B until Area A is complete and
And we have to
satisfied.
have the survey
Yeah.
done, which hasn't been done, which won't be done until they finish that last 175 feet.
Yeah.
Then they'll come in and survey the whole area to make sure they don't leave any speed bumps in Area A, because if they did, they're gonna have to go back in, dig those out,
Yeah.
which will add to the total
Yeah.
cubic yardage.
Are we going to be able to do it in the time that the dredge is staying there, or will it have to be a
That's-
revisit?
No, it will be in the time that the dredge is there.
I don't think we'll get over to the C Street Bridge, money-wise and time-wise, but I think we'll get the majority of the shoaling inside of Truance Island. That's the major part of it anyway. That's the hardest part, really, the shallowest part. The rest is navigable. So this is the major part of Area B.
Yeah.
So the whole goal is A, then B, but they'll probably move into the river probably this week and tuck behind Fort Cliff. But there's been no change or discussion. They know the towns are interested, but we can't entertain it until Area A is satisfied by myself and Steve in the town to say, okay, survey's adequate or good. But it looks really good. There's been no complaints, and they've done a really good job.
Where does A end and B begin?
So A ends probably a couple hundred feet before number 2 Truance Island. It kind of comes down to a pie shape.
Yep.
So me and Steve, we get the daily reports of how far they get progressing.
Yeah.
So basically, it's been a little slow because the material's so dense in rocks. They try and fill in 4 pockets of the dump scow versus
Right.
6. So that kind of slowed things down a little bit. But once they turn aside to Area B, hopefully, it's more sandy material and not as dense. So
Yeah.
a little bit will go a little bit quicker.
We had about a week of weather as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So about halfway through the cut is where it changes from A to B?
No, actually, it goes inside Truance
Inside.
Island, then it turns to B.
Okay.
That's all deep
Yeah.
in there as you come around.
Yeah.
But as you hit buoy 4 and 4A, it's a
Yep.
big shoal right in there.
Right,
It's
okay,
like
that's the-
0.7, 0.9, it's really, really shallow. So
Okay.
that's the area of focus, then they'll come in towards the straightaway.
Okay.
So, which it should take them, they should go pretty quick. If they can fill 6 pockets of the dump scow, it's gonna be
Should
pretty
move
quick.
right along.
You know, boating traffic's a little less now, so the timing's right. And,
So today we're doing 4 primarily because there's a lot of rock,
in the weight.
right?
The weight, you saw the scows when
Yes.
it was full. I mean, it's right, it's
Yeah.
it's way down.
Yeah,
it is.
If
That's one
they
of
had
the
filled
four
it
of
to
the six.
6, it would have been washing over the decks,
Yeah,
so.
it's not safe.
But it's much more sandy in parts of late A and early
Yes.
B.
I believe so,
All
at least
right.
on the surface. And they poked around a little bit, but eventually, I mean, all that sand came to the beach at some point anyway, so it should be better material,
Got it,
or easier to dredge.
got it.
Schedule-wise, this is the week that I think they said they would be wrapping up what they originally were contracted. So
Yeah, they're right on time.
Yeah.
Even with some weather and some breakdowns, I mean, they're right on time.
Committed to the Plymouth at some point this month?
I think
October 1st.
it's October 1st.
Well, they have 2 dredge crews anyway. I mean, they're not gonna pack up and leave. I mean, it's been pretty seamless. For dredging, in the
They're pretty
summertime,
happy.
this has been a home run.
Yeah, you guys, both teams have done a great job, police as well, so thank you very much for your support and efforts. It's been great.
It's been good.
Really, no complaints that we would hear.
Been really
You
good,
guys
no
will get it.
incidents, no problems, no accidents.
Yeah, been good.
No accidents due to the dredging, accidents due to knuckleheads taking boats out late at
I
night.
can't speak for everyone, but it's been really, really good. Positive in our ends.
Okay?
Anything else, Stephen? I mean,
So that's the dredge report. I should have a 90% engineering drawings for you, the Cole Parkway Marina project, at the next meeting for you to review. And if I get them sooner than the meeting, I'll electronically send them out so you can review, mark them up for your comments.
Okay. Great. And then the intention is to put it out to bid?
Well, the intention is to get the DEP final permit approved
Right?
and the license in place. And then it would, if that goes according to plan, then they complete it to 100% on the engineering drawings. It would then legal notices, public, the comments, public comment, and then it will go to bid.
Still looking at potentially a winter project?
Yeah, we were hoping that it would that we'd be having the piles in December, but we don't think that'll happen. It's probably going to be, they'll probably start driving them in March,
Okay.
unless we get a mild winter. Possibly, and that's if we get the permit. If we don't get the permit, if we don't get the license,
Sure.
we're dead in the water, so
Any questions on that from anyone?
do you get a report on what's going on with
no, I can't comment on that.
but you might not. I mean,
I might know a lot of things, I can't comment on.
I mean, we're talking about hopefully December, but here we are in September, and so, or maybe January, whatever. or March.
If we got it tomorrow, it still wouldn't, you don't have enough time.
Okay.
I just can't, I'm not, I just can't comment on.
No, we understand. There's litigation ongoing, so.
Once they're there, at some point in time, out of what, there'll be someone there driving piles. How long a project is it, just ballpark? Is it a week more? or just like 2 weeks?
It's going to take a couple of weeks. I was told by Verusian, the consultant, that they could probably drive, 4 to 6 piles a day. I mean, there's 47 of them.
All right, so several weeks.
David,
For that part of it, but then you get the configuration.
what was your experience at Scituate? How many piles were you guys driving a day?
45, we did 45 total. It did take longer than they thought. I thought it would be a week, 5 days. They didn't work Friday. The crew did not drive on Fridays, but they worked 4/12s. So, but they did probably 7 or 8 a day. Then they ran into some issues because we didn't have some that were long enough. There was all
Right.
hurdles. So it took us 2 weeks to do 45.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we had them pull some of the blocks, and that turned into a fiasco.
Yeah, we have to do that as well.
A couple of weeks. Yeah, that's a challenge with a crane. It sounds like it's easier to do with a crane because you just reach in, pop them. The problem is that when you've had a floating dock system for so long,
They
those
crisscross
chains are all over the place, and you're dragging one out, and 3 are connected. And I don't know. It's probably easier just to let a mooring guy do it because it's a challenge with a crane. And they charge. I think the crane's $7,500 a day for the rate to sit there and do that. You could probably do it cheaper with a local mooring guy that just pulls them out one at a time and runs them up to the beach. It was not cost effective for us.
Yeah, it's all going to be done, I believe, through the contractor, so however they want.
Yeah. We had that as sort of It was kind of, not an add-on, but it was definitely not in the pile driving project, but then they convinced me to let them do it, because they thought it would be so much easy, and then I think they regretted that big time, because it was like pulling up spider webs.
Great, thank you very much, Dave. Anything else?
No, the season's been going very well. We started DACWA. I think our reservations are up. Which is good. It's worked out great. Everybody, DACWA is a mooring reservation system. It's worked out fantastic.
Looks like a lot more transients have been in.
Yeah, we've been sold out.
Yeah.
If people start pulling, do they let you know? I mean, you can see the slip.
That's the big problem we have is, even though it's in the contract that you're supposed, if you're going out overnight, you're supposed to notify the harbor master's office. Most people don't. We come across them, and sometimes I'll make a call and find out if they're coming back or if they're out for a while.
I'm thinking end of season, you know, become more.
Beginning of the season, end of season, because there's a lot of people going back and forth, and they do stop in, and if we know if it slips empty, we can mark it as vacant, and we can rent it. But it's worked great. Staff likes it. Transients love it. Just makes it real easy.
So how does that, and you probably went over this, but interacting with that other mooring information system that we purchased, or renting now, or subscribing?
Subscribing to. It kind of interacts with it. Yeah. A little, more computer, on a computer end of it.
I know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Great.
Can I just ask you about, I know you had to replace a section of the marina?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've replaced, well, earlier this year, I replaced a section over at the Maritime Center.
Right, yeah.
Howie's dock.
Yeah.
We had a dock break, and at Cole Parkway over by the P-Town end, was, called Truro.
Yeah.
The dock actually snapped in half. I think you saw some pictures of it.
I did, that's why I wanted you to bring it up, just because I did go up and take some pictures and looked at it.
Yeah.
All that wood was,
There was nothing left of it.
it was not, everything was rotted and bent and broken,
So, but we actually did it. We had the two tenants move their boats, one to the T and one to the pump out station,
yeah.
and we removed the dock under load, slid the new dock in, pulled out the wires, pulled out the plumbing,
Yeah.
put everything back in. Went together pretty easily.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
With your staff?
Yes. My staff and we had a little bit of assistance as well from the, contractor that built the dock to give us a hand.
So what did you just have the section of dock going around?
No, I have one made.
How much did that cost?
About $8,000.
Okay.
And I bring it up only because it's just a sign that, it's breaking apart in other places around the marina, so.
It is breaking apart.
So is this part of your capital plan?
Yeah, to replace the whole marina.
Right, but that's over 4 years, 4 different,
Yeah, it
Fiscal
depends on if we get a Seaport grant where we can do it in, 1 year, that would be great.
right. If we don't,
Then we have to
it's
do.
$1 million. It's
We have to do
very
it for
difficult.
5 years,
Right.
6 years,
So for next year.
Because I'd like to actually, rather than just replace exactly the way we have it, I'd like to get, bigger tubs so that the docks actually sit up out of the water a little bit higher, so that,
Yeah.
all the materials underneath aren't damp all the time. When they're damp, they rot. It doesn't matter what they're made out of, but by raising them up, you get a little bit more air under them, they stay drier. When they stay drier, they look better, they last.
Plus, now pulling them out, once we get the de-icers up and running, will increase the longevity,
Correct.
right? Okay.
I just ordered or I'm in the process of ordering the second load of de-icers, in case the marine stays in place this year. I want them on site. So that we have,
Got it.
In case it stays in place, where's it going?
it goes across the way to the Maritime Center. I think I walked you,
Right. It stays in, you consider leaving it where it is and not moving it over there?
if,
If we have the piling stuff.
Right, okay. I follow you, thanks.
I don't see that really happening.
Right.
So
I
the
didn't
second-
want to not have them. And
No, I get it.
the second half of the ices was what, about $45,000?
About 40,000, somewhere right in there.
Okay. Got it.
Other than that, the electrical system is great. We had I think I talked to the committee last time I was here. I thought we were going to have a few more issues than we had, and we were pretty limited. It seems to have worked out very well.
Great.
I do get calls on occasion that there's no power. You know, I explain to them just turn the breaker on and off. You know, we did. I go over there, turn it on and off, it all works.
Good call.
All right. In terms of the fleet, everything's performing well, we don't have any,
The Unit 3 is coming out of service tonight, or it's down one engine right now. The starboard engine's hard start, it won't start. And then we went to move it, and it did start today, but we're going to take it out because there's got to be something going on with it and we need to actually operate. So that'll go up to 3A Marine probably tomorrow. Unit 1's at 3A at Monahan's. It's all been serviced, oil change, gear loop, etc. That'll go back to Moore tomorrow.
got it.
And then Unit 2, once Unit 3 comes out, then Unit 2 will go up and get serviced as well.
And we're still on target for the June 20 delivery of the other boat?
As of right now, yes, we are.
Okay. Questions? Anyone? Okay. Anything else, David?
No.
Okay.
Thank you for all your support this year.
Thank you very much. Year's not over yet, not over till October now.
Quick question, have you found any use for are you using the boats down on the Herring River?
Yes, we are. We actually, about a month ago, we got a call from MP1. There was a boat up on the spit, and there was thunder and lightning storm coming in. This boat was high and dry. They weren't able to get over to it. I actually went out with one of my staff. We ran the boat right up to the beach, had them anchor their boat, put them on the small boat, and we ran them right back down the river and got them out of harm's way. And my staff has done that a couple of times. That was one occasion that I was on board.
Great.
It worked out very well. And it was low tide, like dead low.
You must draw about 1 inch.
We don't
Okay,
draw-
just, thank you.
We don't draw much.
All right, thank you, Stephen. All right, so with that, I'd like to invite our brethren from Conservation. I don't know how we're gonna do this. Normally at our place, we have like on the table.
Yes, right, yeah.
Sit there, pull chairs up, whatever, stand the whole time, whatever's comfortable for you guys.
Fine, thank you.
You know Penny Pipes, Scott Pipes?
Leanne, you know them, Frank, so you've got them for your record?
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for fitting us in.
You're welcome.
I guess I'm going to start. I haven't been down the Maritime Center in a long time. 2 weeks ago, I was down there for a meeting. And I have to be honest, I was very, very upset when I left there. The maintenance has not been kept up with the work you did down there that you got permission from Concom to do. And I'm really disappointed that the walkway was ADA compliant. It's a little pathway. At that time, it hadn't been mowed. As soon as Steve heard that we were going to come in, all of a sudden it got mowed and this and that. Phragmites, we spent a lot of money. Frank seems to think it's CPC. I'm not 100% sure where the funds came from, but the Phragmites is all back. all those beautiful plantings you put there, they're being strangled. Literally, they're being strangled. And you have those lovely benches you put out there. Who wants to sit and look at phragmites? The dog bag thing, phragmite. I mean, the maritime, the harbor master, that was your responsibility to maintain that once it was done. It hasn't been maintained. The parking lot has potholes in it. You know, the dunes. The other thing, when I was down there, all the boat stances, they were all along the pathway by the water. They don't belong there. Yes, they did get moved. But if somebody hadn't made a call, they probably wouldn't have been moved. There, it was just, I was so disappointed. You have a beautiful place down there, but the maintenance that you were supposed to do is not being done.
Okay.
Can I jump in just a little bit? And see, so Penny brought this to my attention, and we all know that we serve on different boards as volunteers and try to work at different aspects, whether it's conservation with trails or parking or whatever. So everybody comes at some things from a different view, and my discussion with Penny was there are issues that are conservation related regard to the order of conditions that were placed on the project at the time it was permitted. So when the Maritime building was built, or when the Boat Works building was being built, it came before the Conservation Commission for an order of conditions, and the commission issued those with different pieces for mitigation. So some of the mitigation, and this is to the best of my recollection, it's been a while, I haven't dug too deep, but part of the mitigation was the construction of an artificial dune that was between Edward Foster Road and the parking area, and then the walkway and the cleanup of that area. You know, when the Youngs had it, it was pretty messy, and so an awful lot has been done to clean that up. I remember them pulling motor blocks and things out of there that were used as you know, sort of a makeshift seawall or whatever. So there's a whole bunch of things that were done that's all positive, the kayak launch, and then Penny's point, the ADA walkway that was supposed to go around the area. And over time it's become overgrown, or in the case of the dune that's between Edward Foster, is sort of getting trampled. You know, in the spring, I think there's a lot of issues with parking. There's not enough room, and so people tend to park along Edward Foster, and then they walk over the dune. And you know, if we condition a project anywhere in town, we put these orders in to maintain either an open space or whatever, and it's supposed to be perpetual to carry on with that project. So, but then the issue is, how does it get maintained? How is it paid for? Who's supposed to do it? All that sort of thing. So we know that this is not just a simple issue of not being addressed. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes with it. So bring it up and then hopefully find some way to work out these issues and get them. I mean, there's nothing really egregious there. No one's dumping chemicals or digging in places where they're not. It's just a matter of maybe doing a little bit more with the maintenance and protecting some of these areas, and then maybe getting the walkway. You know, the commission, working with community preservation, sponsored the article to purchase a bunch of land at the end of Sunset Road, you know, with the hope that someday there'll be some connectivity between those pieces, that will sort of helpfully link together and continue on the Harbor Walk piece to make the harbor and all those areas a lot more attractive and appealing. So I think we all want to work together to that end and just figure a way to do that. And maybe, you know, I know that someone reached, you know, I was reached out to by Waterways earlier in the year, and it was really busy. We're talking about the Driftway Park. And so something maybe we have to up our game a little bit and work together on some of those pieces. I think would be a constructive way to go about looking at that.
Fair enough.
I, for one, have been intimately involved with the whole project since day one. Agree, and I appreciate what you said, Penny, about the condition there. Frank is correct. The north end of the property was funded by CPC money. And yes, it had an ADA at the time, accessible pathway with plantings and the like, and that's why the benches are there. But like some of the other things, I guess, too, that you're mentioning, Frank, we have to take a step back and look at what our long-term maintenance programs should look like. Yes, I'm familiar with, for instance, the dune along Edward Foster. There's not only mitigation for you and your conditions, but for the Army Corps. And we wanted to give that back, and now, not only do we have phragmites there, we have boats there, we have people parking on them. As a matter of fact, I mentioned maybe 6 months ago to the then Natural Resources Officer, it'd be nice if we could give a little sign that just said, don't park on the dunes. And then we got washed out in one of the storms, but they're coming back, and the plantings weren't casual. The grass was planted in accordance with the way things should be planted. So we did that. Yeah, the parking lot has potholes in it. We've talked to the town administrator with Stephen and allocated some money in the budget to take a look at how we can make that more attractive, because it's a centerpiece going into the Maritime Center for the whole property. So we need to turn that up a notch somehow. So there's a few things. The phragmites, we tried to eradicate them unsuccessfully. And if you don't do it right over and over again, I guess I'm not a
It's very hard, it's very difficult.
It's very tough, so yeah, but we ought to take a look at how to do it. But I think you're bringing up a good point. We've got sailboats from the rec department piled up behind the pump station there that I talked to Maura Clancy last night about, and she's saying, well, they need to go to auction. Well, put them someplace while they're going to auction, not in prime space, which that is. Stephen took it upon himself, the harbor master, to put a fence around the dumpster that's there. So here we got prime real estate on our harbor, we put a dumpster. I mean, really, folks, but we've covered that, at least it's given some relief to that. Fortunately, in the last, since you spoke, Amy was over there, and it's been mowed, and the stands have been moved, and we need to clean up the dunes still. There's some still work to be done there, and clean it up, but there's work to be done. But I think we have to ask a bigger question going forward, for instance. We're going to ask the harbor master of waterways to maintain a park, no different than conservation to maintain a park. Should this be something that should be handled by the Parks Department to do the periodic mowing? I don't know enough about it, so we don't ask DPW to go out and save people that are drowning. We're going to ask the harbor master to cut grass. So, but I think we need to talk about it, Frank. I think you're asking
we've been fortunate with the trails and a lot of the properties that conservation has. We've had a great group of volunteers. I mean, we're just very fortunate that there's people that really enjoy that and want to do it. We're also looking into the possibility of getting some of the folks that might benefit from a tax break. The town has a program where people want to work and to offset their property taxes. So we're trying to look at that. I mean, I mentioned, and I know you guys got to get on to another piece tonight, but the Driftway Park. And, that's a property that's used really repetitively, and it's a difficult one for us to maintain because of the use. And we're lucky that the police department has got Craig out there doing a lot more now. You mentioned him, and it's a great asset to try to do a better job in policing some of those and just getting people that use it on a regular basis to respect it and take care of it. And it's always a problem. But sometimes the volunteers, and then it's been another issue with DPW. Projects get funded with community preservation money, but it doesn't come with maintenance. And then they're saying, well, geez, we're already maxed out, with ball fields and grounds and all that sort of stuff. So I think just figuring out how we might pull that together and have it.
You bring up a good point. It's a bigger issue. It's a town issue on how we provide maintenance. You should be aware, I'm going to make this comment too, the Maritime Center has been taken away from waterways, so any revenue generated from that facility goes to the general fund. That's one more of our facilities in town that needs to be watched by will the facilities people. Sure. You have
Well,
very
these are things that need to be looked into then, because somebody has to be responsible down there. And, you know,
Steve, anything to
this
say?
hand says something and that one says something.
I'm sorry about the weeds and the grass, and it was overgrown over there. There was a little confusion this year whether DPW was doing it or whether we were doing it. We were under the impression DPW was doing it, and I've since spoken to Mike Green, and I believe he's putting it on his list of small parks to take care of.
Small parks.
Small parks.
How many small parks do we have? Yeah.
That's what he had, and I spoke to him today as well, again.
I know.
Okay, because that's not what I was told when I spoke.
I'm just going by what I was,
No, that's why it
They-
has to
I
be
actually-
ironed out one
I
way or
actually-
the other, that's all.
Because Mike, I called him, when I went over there and saw what it looked like, because, I get out and I'm going around, but I'm not walking all the corners
Yeah.
of each lot. And I called him up because we don't have, the equipment to mow that stuff. So he came out with his stuff and he took care of it.
No, I know, no, we did.
Yeah.
It's just, but once we get it up and running again, nice and pretty looking, volunteers, like Frank said, there's the senior program now, the tax break and stuff, and, once it's up, then the maintenance, hopefully we can get volunteers involved, like we
Rick?
with our trails.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on some of these comments, also being involved in this project for a long time. I agree with you folks about the important role that volunteers can play, but that's also reminds me of the old comment that hope is not a strategy. And, going back to some of the points that Howie makes about essentially where jurisdiction lies, and that the harbor master was just talking about there being some confusion between the responsibility between DPW and the harbor master. And this was in fact all ironed out many years ago. That I don't actually recall, we don't need to get into it now, if it's the harbor master's responsibility or Brian's responsibility for the holes in the parking lot. And we don't need to get into that now, there's a simple answer somewhere, but I don't need to get into that now. But very specifically, the Waterways Commission is not responsible for, and shouldn't be responsible for maintaining any of that material outside of Brian's business area, meaning the trail and all that other stuff. And that's squarely in the hands of the town. The rec department has been very good with supporting water activities through the recreational sailing program and so on, but they need to step up and do a better job with the handling of their assets off to the sides of the properties that we were all talking about. So from a historical point of view, it's actually pretty straightforward, and we just need to make sure that there is clarity. So Steve's not put in the position of having to get out there with weed whackers. You folks are not put in the position of seeing this beautiful property be, miss or under or non-maintained. But it's clearly not going to be paid for out of waterways funds because that's not appropriate. As Howie said, the structure itself from that set of orders of conditions is that project as opposed to the boatyard project. And then also with the oncoming acquisition by the town using CPA funds for the Sunset Drive property, I think this is a really good opportunity for us collectively, waterways to join with conservation and make it very clear, where the maintenance is going to be and who's going to be doing the maintenance. Sure, we can be involved in oversight and providing, information when things are starting to fall apart, like you folks very helpfully have done. But, it's pretty cut and dry in the town. The other aspects of the town, namely recreation and DPW, have to step up, and they haven't so far. Now, it's all friendly and maybe, just sort of constant nurturing of the garden of responsibility, shall be, and I think, Steve did a nice job in, reaching out to Mike, and they worked that
Mike
out.
ran right out,
Let's just keep
No,
that
I know
going.
we did.
But it's pretty clear in terms of the responsibilities.
The only thing, Rick, with that, and I agree, it should just find a cooperative way to do it, but
Yeah.
when these projects are conditioned, when people come before the commission to build something like the Bulwarks building
Yeah.
or the Maritime Center, there's a set of orders and conditions that are placed on those property, whether it's erecting that dune, or clearing the phragmity, or doing the planting. Those are orders that are placed on that project, and they remain in that project, they're recorded with the deed, and they stay there.
Yeah.
And at the time, it is the town of Scituate is the applicant.
Right.
However, it usually tends to be some sort of group or committee. And I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pretend to know who owns what down there, or
Yeah,
who
yeah.
controls what, I don't know. I learned tonight that now the Maritime isn't part of Waterways. I don't know
Yeah.
whether the boatyard still is or is not, or
It is.
whatever, but
Boatyard is, that's why I
But when those
specifically use
buildings
that
are-
one as an example.
when those buildings
Yeah.
were allowed to be built as close as they were to the marsh, and to get those pieces, you know that you get mitigation, you offer mitigation. And mitigation is constructing of those things, and it needs to be maintained.
Yep, absolutely right, and no disagreement whatsoever, and that's why I kind of used the parking lot area as an example of where Waterways is involved, because the boatyard was part of the Waterways project and so on. Some of the dunes certainly fall into that. But also, Historical Society, right?
With the other side.
With
Sure.
the other side there, and, we moved that for them, and, so
Yeah,
there's
no, there's a bunch of
different
different, and we
things.
just figure out
I
a way.
think we're all on the same side
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just, and I don't want to keep you.
No,
because I
please
know you
keep
got
going.
things to do, but we were talking earlier about the Driftway Park.
Yep.
And so the commission has a few projects ongoing right now that we're trying to pull together, parking and access for properties that were acquired with CPC funds. We're trying to get these things wrapped up. We really want to circle back to the Driftway Park. It's our most used park. We get all kinds of feedback and comment. Now the dog area is at the other end. It's way more used than any of our other properties. And so there's issues now with parking, all those sort of things. I know back when I first got on the commission, some of it was out of frustration of people trying to limit access to the river there. And I used it since I was a kid and want to maintain, we want to keep doing that. But we know that it's a busy place, and when it's stormy outside, a lot of people want to access, the river and whatnot from the Driftway. So we need to start to circle back to that, and we have some plans in place, we have some other things, and that's another thing I think we should be getting with you guys on, because part of it's going to impact how people use it.
So Frank, I'm Dave
We did-
Sikowski. I'm the one that reached out to you.
Right,
as you-
and that's why
And we did speak finally, so.
Right.
And I wrote to your administration person, Mary, I'm sorry,
CPC, yeah.
Probably that's the reason you never got it, because there's no Mary.
No, we tell you.
There's a reg would be.
Yeah, that's what-
Thank you,
Yeah.
to get us on the next agenda, and she said that, I guess it's quite full now, but she'll
We are.
come back to us.
Yeah, it's very full right now. It might be a few months before.
So there's a definite interest on this side. I
I
reached
think for
out to
both
you
of
to
us,
get something.
ultimately, we want to serve the people of the town of Scituate,
Absolutely.
and figure out a way to accommodate those different pieces. So we'll be working towards that end. It's not tomorrow, but
No, that's right. As long as we can get on your calendar and
week.
start
Yeah, yeah.
moving forward on this, right?
Sure.
Because there's some issues down there that if we don't address, they'll become bigger headaches
absolutely.
in the shorter term than
Yeah.
not. So we just want to stay on top of it.
Absolutely.
Similar to the mowing of the path, so to speak, right?
Well, it's just so beautiful down there.
Yes, it is.
It broke
Clearly.
my heart to
Yes.
go down there 2 weeks ago, and I'm there, what happened?
Okay.
So,
Stuff grows.
I know, well, check it out, oh my God, twice a week, so I might be your
So
landscaper.
before you go, any other questions or points on this? Or anything else that Frank and Penny brought up? No? So we do have a request, and this is something we'd like to get on your agenda to discuss potentially. And that is, we're concerned that there's some docks that may be built in the future that may end up in a channel or what have you. The notification process has been that they drop it into the Waterways mailbox information. A while back, it was that they actually had to appear before the Waterways. And we're concerned that it's not being properly vetted on our side because of a timing issue. right?
Okay.
And we haven't seen any.
Right.
We've only seen one in the past.
These are Chapter 94 licenses?
Chapter 91,
91.
new Chapter 91
New
licenses
chapter,
or changes to a Chapter 91 license.
So somebody makes an application to you
Yep.
for a dock in the South River,
Yeah,
and you go through your process to decide how that's going to work. We want to be involved from a navigation standpoint. Where does that sit?
Typically, we look for a letter from Steve that he's reviewed it,
Yeah.
don't we? I mean,
So waterways, and I've told the engineers that waterways should be also on that list.
coffee donut.
all right.
Because they want to see.
I just figured you guys are one and the same. So,
That's
as
fair.
you and I do. All right,
Yeah, all we're concerned about is somebody, we're concerned on twofold. First of all, somebody maybe unintentionally ending up in the channel.
Yep.
And then an as-built, somebody who maybe decided to take a few more feet and now
Well,
is sticking out to the channel.
We did a site visit tonight, and there was conveniently a set of plans missing from the.
There we go,
So,
right, right.
Got it,
So we're on the same page on this one as well.
absolutely.
Okay,
Good.
great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right. Okay, so we got 10 minutes. Let's do some quick cleanup. Everybody go for that? Okay.
Good luck.
Sure. Just looking to attend our meeting. Okay, so ongoing items, pump out boat Marshfield MOU. So I know that was still in Jim's lap. Last time, Howie, you and I spoke with him, which I believe was in July. And that is something that we will follow up with. Okay, and we're leaving that on. Shellfish Commission, we're taking that off because obviously that's been taken care of. Leanne, you with me on this, right? Dave Strakowski just made the request to Frank Snow, so we're good on that one. AAA ramp will leave Brad and the Ducks on there for now. Process selecting engineering firms about the master dredging plan.
Working on that.
You working, so she can hear you, working it on?
Working on it.
You keep it on it?
Yes. Okay. Dave and I have to finalize the subcontract. And then the security cameras, that dates back to last year. That's a project that we really should take a look at. I wonder if anybody has, good knowledge of telecommunications and maybe,
What, I don't recall, what were we looking at there?
So today, actually, Mike in his office has views of the North River.
Yeah.
Right? And in the police office, they've got views around the harbor. And then
Yeah.
Steve has views around the harbor, but they're all, none of them are integrated. They're all separate. They can't see his, he can't see theirs, back and forth. So it'd be nice if we could figure out a way that if there's an event in the North River that Mike's team is in control of the camera, at least there's visibility by Steve to see what's happening remotely. As well as some of the cameras that Steve has that maybe the police may want to see, have access to the ramps, looking up from the first cliff, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
it's, I know you know a lot about telecommunications. I'm sure there's a way to network this together. That's not the issue. It's probably a bigger issue in terms of not the interdepartmental cooperation, but whether or not this information can be shared, et cetera, et cetera. Because if it can, then there's cameras, for example, at the yacht club, and the yacht club has volunteered to allow us to access that as well in the event of problems, and I'm sure there's others. So it's a project that we'd like to take a look at longer term. So.
Is the camera system that you have, is that web-based that you can view it remotely? Or do you have to physically be able to look at it?
I think I have to be there
You do?
to look at it, yeah.
Mike,
Mine's down right now. So.
Mike, your camera system down there, can you view that remotely, or do you have to physically look at your
Watch
watch?
on my iPad right from here.
You can, right? Yeah. Is it SPD same way?
No, so it needs, you need to be on the network, you need to be on a computer on the network.
Yeah, it's like a computer on the network, yeah.
Yeah, at the PD, so. and it ties in with the rest of our security. So I think initially that was, Stephen had hoped to see the cameras like they were mounted on his building.
Yeah.
But due to the way that it ties back to our security piece back at the station,
Yeah.
we weren't able to share that out. He had to physically be in the station and watch it.
Okay.
As my understanding, I don't know a heck of a lot about it.
Yeah.
The access to them actually came up at town meeting. I forget what the vote was, but I think there was a limitation put on who can see the cameras. I think it was left to the police department.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the funding of them.
I'll tell you what, so we don't delay this,
Right.
I'll look into it, take it as
Great.
an action item to work with Steve and looking at that, figure if it's possible.
Okay, so I want to give our friends from the Shellfish Advisory Committee time to set up. Last item that we're going to add in the new business is in October meeting. It's been over a year that I've served as chairman, and as I said from the beginning, I believe it should be a one-year term. So at the October meeting, if anybody's interested, that'd be great. If no one's interested, then I'm more than willing to continue, but I believe fresh blood and new ideas are a good thing. So if everybody would consider it, and at the next meeting we can have the whole elections. Okay? Great. With that, let's see, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting, the Waterways meeting.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, unanimous, appreciate it. The Shellfish Rules and Regulation meeting will start momentarily. Thanks, everybody, we'll try to keep... Thank you, everybody. We're starting a couple minutes late, we apologize for this. We've got the room until about 10 o'clock, so we're going to try to obviously finish up before that because it is a school night for certain people. That being said, so I'm Brian Kelly, head of the Waterways Committee. We've invited the Shellfish Advisory Committee, a subcommittee, to us to come and present the Waterways, the Shellfish Rules and Regulations. That is in its current edition. And I want to thank the members of the Shellfish Advisory Committee. A lot of work, a lot of volunteering hours. You guys have done a great job. Created a nice framework for rules and regulations, and people in the audience don't realize, a lot of people may, but volunteering takes you away from your family, takes you away from work, takes you away from any free time. So thank you very much for volunteering and doing this. You guys have done a great job so far. So thank you. With that,
So what ways you guys into your agenda?
So what we're going to do is a PowerPoint presentation, give a brief overview of what we've been doing for the last 6 months, 9 months. Then we're going to go through the rules and regs, page by page, and then ask for comments. So with that, we'll start with the presentation.
great. One quick thing, I'm sorry. We neglected in our 6 o'clock meeting to formally accept the minutes from July. So just as a Waterways Committee, since we're still in session, could I get a motion to accept the minutes from July?
Sure.
So moved. Second. All in favor? All opposed? Nay. So unanimously accepted. So thank you very much. Now I'll ask the Shellfish Advisory Committee to go ahead and take it from here. We will then take it over when we go through the Word document and ask some public feedback at that point. Right? Thank you very much.
Okay, next slide. Okay, here's the team that we put together for this process. If each one of us want to stand up, Mike?
Good evening, Mike DeMayo, Shellfish Constable.
Jamie Davenport, Scituate resident and at-large member.
Susan Harrison, at-large member.
Jeff Palmer, Scituate resident, recreational shellfish permit holder.
Craig Rosenquist, and I'm on the Waterways Committee as well. I don't know if we need Sean.
Sean Harris?
I don't know, is RJ here?
No.
We have a new
Yeah, we
liaison.
have a new liaison.
Oh, we did, okay.
Yes.
We should have updated.
As of today,
Oh,
as of like 3 hours ago. So.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Okay, so just a little bit of background of what shellfish is happening in Massachusetts. I got this off of a website from Food Product. And there's 360 growers in Massachusetts with over 1,200 acres of farms. And you can see over on the right-hand side, most of the farms are down the Cape and on the islands. Some on the South Shore, and I think probably Plymouth Bay and Frenchburg is probably where most of those are. With a value of about $20 million, and as you can see in that chart, it's growing and the demand continues to grow. So these farms coming online here in Scituate, there should be plenty of market for them. Next slide. We're looking at joining the other 29 towns that have already started or have ongoing commercial operations in the state, in different zones. We're looking to bring some things to the town that are very, very beneficial. That area that we're going to be starting with, and we have slides of where we're going to be starting, but it's not productive right now. And so we're looking at making it a very productive area of town. Bringing in an environmentally friendly business. It's going to bring new jobs to town. And we think there's some opportunities for marketing the town, having Scituate oysters in the restaurants, in the markets in the town. Maybe even make it part of Heritage Days. And also the opportunity to grow the seeds in the harbor, and then we can make that an educational and a tourist type of thing. There's, with the way that the state has it set up, where the harbor isn't, you can't grow shellfish in the harbor and harvest it from there. It has to be moved out to the farms, and so we can look at some sort of program that we can do that. So we can grow the seeds in the harbor and then move them out to the farm. Our charge as the committee was to define the areas that can support these operations, and it has to be year-round. We write the rules and regulations, and that's where we spent most of our time, is going through the rules and regulations and setting a framework for everyone to follow. Determine the most ethical method to award grants. We're still working on that. And then we're going to be making recommendations to the waterways and ultimately to the Board of Selectmen who make the final decision. Okay, the areas that we talk about for shellfishing are from top to bottom: Regs Harbor, Scituate Harbor in the middle, and then the North and South River at the bottom. Regs Harbor is approved by the state for year-round cultivation of shellfish. Scituate Harbor, you can't grow them at all. You can grow them, but you can't harvest them. North and South River is conditional. In the winter months, it's open for shellfishing. Okay, so the area that we've been concentrating on and that is open year-round by the DMF for aquaculture operations is a place called Regs Harbor. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with it. Maybe I can give you a little, kind of give an idea of where this is. And this is Cohasset, and this is Atlantica down here. Atlantica is right there, I'm sorry. And then the Glades is out here. And the Scituate line goes straight up this way. So everything to the right on this map is Scituate land, and everything to the left is Cohasset. So this area is the area we're talking about opening up for these farms. So if we look at the next slide, we went through the process of digitizing it, laying out the high and low water marks. And the purple line is the high water mark, and I believe the green line is low water mark. Does that sound right?
Yellow.
Yeah. Yellow.
The purple line is property lines.
And then the squares are 1 acre squares, 32 of them that we have laid out. And they'll all be plotted out by GPS. Does anybody have any questions exactly where this is?
Craig, would you just show everyone, probably most know, but Government Island, otherwise known as where the Cohasset lobstermen leave their skiffs. Could you just show that on the previous slide if you could? And then
What am I doing?
if you could just show the audience where the Cohasset lobstermen have their skiffs, otherwise known as Government Island, on that map, and then could you just show Parker Ave?
Is Parker Ave?
Parker Ave labeled.
Parker Ave.
Right there.
I'll show you.
Oh, yeah, right there.
There you go.
Yeah. So the marina right here, and then this is where the,
That's Government Island.
Government Island over there? Okay.
Just so everyone.
No, it's Government Island.
Yeah, this is the right. Yeah, by the way, this is called Regs Harbor. There's not much of a harbor there. It's wide open there. Next slide. Does anybody have any questions on this slide?
So it's 32 total?
32 total that are mapped out here. It looks like there could be a few more, but this is what we started with. Okay, next slide. Okay, these came from the Department of Marine Fisheries, and this shows that it's green, the area that we're talking about, and so it's open year-round for commercial operations. The red areas are closed permanently, but we're not talking about that. So the next slide are the three maps: Scituate Harbor, North River, and South River. And the red being not open at all, blue being conditional. So, we're concentrating on Briggs Harbor and concentrating on oysters, but we're trying to keep in mind expanding it to the other parts of town once the water quality testing is done, and there could be other types of shellfish grown in the other parts of town. Okay, just the next few slides are summaries of the rules and regs that we put together. The first one is obviously you need to be a Scituate resident. If you're going to do this, you need to get a license in the state with an endorsement for shellfishing. And in the rules and regs, there's a requirement for liability insurance, like $1 million liability insurance. Once you've been granted given the grant and you're getting ready to start operations, you have to make sure you have the insurance in place.
And that's $1 million per acre?
Per acre.
Per acre.
So our rules and regulations are really written around Mass General Law, Section 130. And so the applicant will be required to submit a business plan, which will include, the size of the grant locations, the method of farming, what type of seashell, shellfish that they're going to be growing, and then what they estimate their costs are going to be. So that we feel, when we look at and review these applications, we have a good confidence level that they've got the resources and they've got the knowledge to do it. We don't want them to fail. Application fees are $100, 25 for legal notices, 1 for reporting, and I don't know where the other money goes, but we came up with a $100 application fee. Now, the annual fee is per acre, and that is set by the state, by the general laws, so we can't change that. But we can look at other things to generate some revenue from this. Next slide. Granting license 1 to 3 acres, non-contiguous, granted for 2 years, and a renewal, if everything goes well, they renew it for 5 years after a review. Up to 2 people per grant or per license. And we debate this number a lot, but we put in there a minimum of $10,000 per year investment for the first 3 years to get it up and running. Just, you have a question?
That's going to include labor?
We talked about seed and gear.
Yeah,
We didn't talk
technically
about
it's
labor.
seated here, but that is a very good point.
Yeah. We're still adding details to the. So
Well,
that's
I mean,
what
we would have to define what it is, and that's a good point, I think there's some of that.
Notice to the Board of Selectmen to establish a public hearing date. So once everything is, once we get the rules and regs approved by the town, and the Board of Selectmen, and then we go out for advertising for people that want to apply for these grants. 14 days notice for the hearing, and then the applicant is required to let everyone know what they're doing, and all the other licensees, and notice us from 10 days prior to the hearing. So you have to get the word out that this is what you're planning on doing, and to the people that you're going to affect within the area. Okay, once the grant has been approved by the Board of Selectmen, there's coordination that each individual farmer will need to be responsible for. Mass Marine Fisheries, U.S. Farming Corps of Engineers, Town of Scituate Conservation, and Planning Board. So the way we see it, each farmer will go through a process of meeting with each one of these groups to review what they're doing, what they're going to be doing. Okay, advertise the town to accept applications for the grants. There'll be a 1-month deadline for that. And applications will be reviewed by our group, the Waterways group, and then the Board of Selectmen will have a final decision. Where there's 32 acres out there.
Can I just stop you for a second?
Sure.
So on the applications to be reviewed, first by the Shellfish Advisory Committee, are they looking at them all and pushing them all forward, or are they actually?
We're going to grade them.
You're going to grade them, okay?
We're going to grade them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, we'll be looking at every single one. Hopefully, we'll reduce the number down to a number that is more reasonable. But we'll be looking at them all.
Okay, so it'll be like a point system for
Yeah.
criteria or something?
Yeah, we haven't discussed that yet, but we will work up a checklist.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to start with a pilot program. We don't want to put out 30 farmers out there, or how many could support. So we want to start with up to 5 farmers, up to 3 acres per farmer, and map out all the acreage, and we did that. Grants, and then this is a point that we're working through right now, which is the grants, transferability of the grants. From the Mass General Law, it is acceptable to be able to transfer a grant. And so we're going by those laws.
It's acceptable, or is it required?
I'd have to read.
It's not
It's
required.
allowable. It's allowable.
But Sue actually just whispered a good point that we would not allow, I don't think we would allow transfers during the pilot program.
Oh, true.
I just realized.
Yeah. The first 2 years, it's just seeing those 5 farmers, what kind of viability there is out there. Do they succeed, and do we want to expand it?
I'm thinking, but I'm pretty sure we wrote it as 5 years, didn't we? Like you couldn't transfer until we did it. Strike that.
That's not MGL, yeah.
It provides incentive to main local business longevity.
So if we can hang for questions until Greg runs through it, because we're going to run through this entire document. Unless you have a supporting point, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say on the transferability, I was just curious, of all those towns you showed that are already farming, what percentage have transferability?
From my understanding,
Like
it's
26
majority.
or 29, 26 or 29?
Percent?
No,
26
26 out of 29.
Oh, so over 90%.
What, 90%, what's that, 89?
Just curious.
And in the transfer of the grant, it would be subject to the same principles as the original grantee.
Yeah, it has to
It'd
go
have to
through
be
the
approved
process.
by they'd have to be a Scituate resident and be approved by the Board of Selectmen.
After the 2 years of operation, we evaluate the resources to support the farms. If we need to add more of Mike's time, and also what it's going to take to expand the operation to another 5 or 10 farmers. Next slide.
So one other quick point. If anyone from the audience speaks, if you could state your name and address address. It helps for recording folks.
Okay, so this is kind of our target dates, obviously today, not that date.
One for one.
We've asked to be on the board of selectmen's meeting for the 17th. And we've been told we've been penciled in, and I guess we'll get confirmation soon. Then we're looking at.
What's the goal of that meeting on the 17th?
To get the board of selectmen up to speed on where we're at, and let them ask us questions, and if there's things we need to do, we'll do it. I know that, the rules and regs have not gone to town council yet.
Yeah.
So we know
Well,
that
that's
needs
why
to-
I was asking.
Well, yeah.
To make sure.
So, and maybe it has to go before them, before it goes to board of selectmen, I don't know. But we're tentatively on the meeting on the 17th. Then we go out, hopefully in October, we advertise applications, deadlines for applications in November, review by all the boards and committees in December, and award grants in January. This is a wish list, as far as timing of target dates, but this is kind of like what we would like to see happen, because from my understanding, if they can get awarded in January, you can be ready in spring for farming. Okay, I have that. To put it. So that's basically the presentation, and now we're going to put up the draft rules and regs that were online, and you can go through a page by page.
One.
Can I say one thing before
Please
we
do.
start that?
Could you identify yourself?
Susan Harrison, again, Shellfish Advisory Committee. First off, I don't want to take too much credit. Being the 29th and 30th jurisdiction to do this, there are a lot of regulations out there. So a lot of the time we spent looking at other towns and how they did their regulations. So partly I don't want to take too much credit, but it's also a really good position when you're creating policy that other people have come before you. And we've spoken to folks and tried to take the best of what exists. And I also want to recognize, since you recognize the work that we've done, how important it is, how important this process is. And it's really important to get the public's feedback, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. And I'm actually super excited about the turnout, because this is an exciting prospect. So thank you in advance for all of your comments.
Thank you,
And
Susan.
thank you, Brian.
Sure. So Craig, if you could bring it up. So.
I'm working on that.
Okay.
It's on my screen, it's just not up there.
All right. So what we'd like to do next is, while Craig's bringing it up, is we're going to go over a soft electronic copy of the proposed rules and regulations. The Waterways Committee.
Do you want to?
Absolutely.
I can. You talk.
Thank you. We have about 15
We have
copies.
if
Leanne.
anyone would.
So if anyone would like them,
If anyone would like one.
okay. So the Waterways, we did have one presentation back in January. That was version 4.
There we go.
That was version 4 in this document. We're now up to version 17, right? So since there was a big change from version 4 to version 17, there's 13 members. There may be some changes that members of the Waterways Committee have yet to really see. So the idea would be the Waterways Committee would first comment upon any of the sections, we're going to do one section at a time, and then I'll ask for public input on that section. And hopefully with this, we'll be able to run through all 9 sections in relatively rapid order. And at the end of it, the Waterways Committee will then vote on these regulations to forward them to the Board of Selectmen or take other action. All righty?
Vote on them line by line, or?
No, we'll vote on the
overall.
Correct. Okay, so we're going to identify, Leanne will be recording. If there's any issues or if we're clean, that's good too. Right? Okay.
Okay, so I'll go page by page.
That'd be wonderful. So the prologue we've already really covered.
Question. Actually, can you go up to the first paragraph?
Sure.
Oh, boy, it's just a long night.
Yeah, well, so I do worry that if you look at the second and third sentences, in support of this goal, the town will issue grants. Such licenses will be issued by the BOS. And I prefer that word to be changed to may, because if this is approved as written, one could argue that this obligates the Board of Selectmen to issue grants, when in reality it should be their choice as to whether to issue grants or not. And if they do issue grants, then they would be subject to this. But as written, that requires the board to
Correct.
issue grants.
Comments from the waterways?
Support that.
Support. Public?
Town
Great.
council will cover it, it's legal.
Duly noted. Thank you very much. Okay? You good with the second paragraph, Rich?
The next word.
Okay, definitions. So in the definitions, one of the things that we noticed that's in here is the term Scituate oyster as a commitment back to receiving EDC money. The Shellfish Advisory Group agreed that it will be marketed at the first level as a Scituate oyster. So, for example, if it was me, which I'm not applying for anything, but if it was me, it would be Kelly oysters, Scituate oysters, or Kelly Scituate oysters, or something along the lines of that, so the marketing terms are in there. Okay? In here, as we look at alphabetically, gear is missing, which is a to-do.
Right, we already talked, yep.
Right? Well, I'm
Agreed.
doing this for
Yep,
the public.
yep. Completely agree.
Right?
Yep.
So gear needs to be in here because later on in this document, there's going to be references to gear and spend. So that is pretty simple. Going to section 3.
No, wait a minute.
All right, Howie?
I'd like us to consider whether we should have, for definition, the licensing authority.
So it says it in the first sentence, but I don't disagree with you. So if we go back up to section 1, it indicates, keep going. Section 1?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, here we go. The Board of Selectmen, the licensing authority. But what you're saying is the licensing authority should be identified in the definitions. I don't think that's any hardship for anybody on the Shellfish Advisory Committee? No, great. Waterways, good? Good. Let's jump to 3. So in section 3, the authority section, I don't see any problems in this. The Waterways Committee on the July meeting didn't see a problem with it. Nothing's changed from that meeting. So from the public, are there any issues in terms of section 3? And I realize first time everybody's seeing this, we apologize. It's been posted on the website, but we still want to ask people, any issues, concerns? No, okay. 4. So application. So we go from 4.0 to 4.1, 4.2 rather. There is no 4.1. So in the fees, we can hang on fees because I know that the Waterways Committee will want to discuss this. So, and I'll take the lead on it. So one of the concerns that the Waterways Committee has is the fact that the town will spend somewhere in the vicinity of $15,000 in the first year on setting up this whole program. And what we've challenged and asked the Shellfish Advisory Team is to come up with, is there some fees that would allow the town to recoup these investments? Because at $25 an acre, the payback what we're talking about will be decades. And we don't have any idea what the cost will be in years 2, 3, 4, 5, but we know there'll be costs, obviously. So, from a fees point of view, I asked the Waterways Committee, are you comfortable with this, or do you believe that there should be an investigation on some type of fees that would allow the town to recoup its investments? Correct?
I don't know how much of this is Mass General Law or how much is not, so I know Part B is. I don't know how much of Part A that the higher authorities at the state level would be, saying, hey, you guys are trying to block it if the fee is too high, or, use it in a punitive way, which I certainly would not support. But, yeah, I think we need to look at the fees and see if that's appropriate or not. As a bit of a preamble, because you can probably figure out, I got a lot of comments coming up on this, I'm very, very supportive of the overall endeavor. I want it to work, and I want it to be bulletproof. So that's where my overall comments are going to be coming from. But, you know, I don't know about the fees. It seems low, but on the other hand, we want to have this happen. So I don't know where I am.
Dave?
Can I ask a question of the commission? You know, if other towns started out, they have their publicized, you know, Duxbury or Falmouth, whatever, they have their current situation. They're not getting a lot of new applications, I would think, each year, because there's not a lot of turnover of these grants once it happens. So what are other towns' application fees, and did they change them in the initial period? You know, could have been.
Maybe if we had like an annual fee per acre.
Well, that's the issue that I think Mass General Law.
Yeah, I mean, the Mass General Law, you're correct, B is Mass General Law. And A is similar to what other towns do for application fees. Some of them are as low as like $5. So, I mean, I know there are towns that are begging folks to do this. And then there are towns that haven't had a lot of turnover. So there's quite a swing there. I think the problem, and we can talk to council about this, the problem is not charging like a rent. So you've got to be careful how high the cost gets and how it's tied back to acreage if it's looked at as rent. Because you, as you know, you can call it whatever you want, but they will say it's rent. So the majority, we found, you know, $100 fees, sometimes like a transfer fee would be, you know, upwards of, I think, $400 was the highest that we found. But I'm not sure that, we haven't found a town that uses fees to pay for this. Generally, towns that are able to pay for this, so there's a zero cost to the town, have a more robust wild harvest or recreational shellfish. So we're kind of stuck a little bit. EDC has been very generous with us, if anyone's here from EDC, with paying for the surveys and maybe, but I also come back to the beginning, the pilot program. We do have to mark the corners, so there's going to be a cost in that. But there probably wouldn't be, there'd be a higher cost in the out years, as you mentioned.
Can I ask a question? Does Marine Fisheries give grants?
No. Well, the state license.
Hold on. Take your name and address, sir. Sorry.
Ernie Foster, Platform.
Thank you.
The state is the one who issues the actual license. Like these licenses.
Marine Fisheries have grants to get new process control.
Oh, like for money, grant funding. I'm
So
not sure if
if
it's
you leave
enough
the
though.
fees alone, but you get the grant from the state,
I'm pretty sure in Iowa.
I would actually love to do that, if there's a grant available that you know about. I think
That's a great point.
That's a great point, and I mean, we've gone to EDC for money, and I would be happy to write proposals for money for this.
So we discussed this at our shellfish meeting last night. I had a conversation with Chris Scalacci, who's a specialist with the DNF, last week, and he said this is the age-old conundrum, how is a town to pay for it? And it's tough. If you're going to charge a higher fee than the $25 per acre, trying to recoup some of the money, there has to be a service behind it. You know, I guess some towns have found waterways access fees or a parking fee or coastal access fees. But I think the town of Fairhaven got a home rule exception, and they were allowed to charge a mooring fee associated with it. But there has to be something in return. It can't just be a flat out, you know, rental fee, you know.
So what about in Falmouth, they do public-private? Are you familiar with that?
No.
What do you mean public-private?
So the town will actually go through the process of doing the title search, doing the effectively soup to nuts just before the actual putting the equipment on site. And then I believe as a secondary portion of this, they're running a second program where they're actually receive the grant and they're buying equipment and placing it on site, and then offering turnkey solutions. So obviously that, they're doing that above the $25, because Falmouth has told us that one of the issues, if they could change anything, they would change the 25.
Yeah.
And they're trying to investigate ways around it, because the costs there are hurting them, because obviously the amount of shellfish farming they have going on downtown, right? They've got, I believe, a shellfish constable, assistant shellfish constable, and they just hired a third person for the department. So it's rather large expense for them. So they've been looking at public-private partnerships. That's one of the things they brought up to us. To me, I'm sorry, when I talked to them recently. So I'm just,
That's something for us to look into for sure.
you know,
Yeah.
because as this expands, I believe that Chris Jamie, has indicated that as the town moves beyond this into other areas, the rivers, the harbor, wherever it may be, that the part-time constable position may be required to go full-time.
Correct.
Right? So looking at the additional cost the town may incur, at $25 an acre, we'd have to put out 2,000 acres to cover the cost of a full-time constable, right? Which we don't have. So I'm just trying to understand down the road to make sure that somehow these costs, the town recovers some of them, so to speak.
So why is it that we can't have, at the very least, a proposed budget that shows for 1, 3, 5, maybe 10 years, what the expenses are, proposed revenue, what the gap is, so we know what it is that we're investing in, and wouldn't it be prudent to know how we might be able to recoup that?
To advise the selectmen, I agree with that. You know, so the selectmen say, hey, the selectmen look to us for advice, and we say, hey, we like this program, we're in support of all these rules and regulations, and we're obviously just beginning it. But, you know, we expect if we have whatever the initial pilot program is to generate $200 a year of revenue, we expect it to cost, and Mike, maybe you could help us with this, and then the estimated cost. Just to get this
No, I know
started.
our estimated cost this year will be somewhere in the, with the part-time, without the part-time constable, will be somewhere around 8,000 to 10,000.
And then year 2, and year 3.
But what is
I don't know about
I
that.
mean,
Brian, what is that? 8 to 10, what's that?
So how much did you get from EDC? 3,500?
Yeah.
You got, it was about $1,100 bill with Jamie Madera. It's about a $500 bill with a title search. There's still buoy placements that have to be made. So, so I'm at 5,000 without the buoy placements.
right, but those wouldn't be reoccurring costs.
No, I said first year.
Oh, yeah, first year.
First year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, and
interested.
I mean, I completely
If I
agree.
spend $7,500 in my first year, and I was able to leasehold 30 acres, it's $25, at $25, that's $750, that's a 10-year payback.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's.
I'm not saying, I'm not trying to
Great
be,
idea,
first of all, as you guys know, but just for the public, the waterways really pushed forward to start the advisory with voted unanimously to support this, and we do support this. And I'm not trying to be the Nancy Holt, I would never want to take Nancy's job, she's too good at it, but I just want to make sure that the costs don't become right, unfair, right?
Well, let me ask this.
Sure.
We're looking at a 2-year pilot, right? And so we're going to have the first year costs, they're going to be one time. And the second year, there won't be hardly any costs because it's already being covered by Mike's time. So the first 2 years really isn't going to be that much funds. It's not going to take that much funds.
But then if you wanted to expand, that is exactly what you would need to
Well,
say,
and I
hey,
think
you
that-
want to go past this
But I think
2
that when we
years.
review after the 2 years,
Right.
because I don't think we know if it's going to last 2 years.
I don't.
Right?
I don't.
But if we were going to launch a business tomorrow as business people, it would be commonplace for us to have a 1-year, 3-year, 5, and maybe 10-year budget for these numbers, whether it's successful or not. And we have to be aware of that so that we don't put the burden of that expense on somebody else, let's say the taxpayer. And I don't think we could exclude Mike's salary as the shellfish constable, because a portion of his time, and there's a lot of, looks to me, some administrative expense, where he might need a part-time person just to keep up with that. I don't know that yet. Anyway, my point is this, I think it would be prudent to have a budget.
Should we put together a budget?
Sure.
So I think we've identified this as a flagged area on the document.
Yeah.
And Craig turned off his PC, he's had enough.
Coming back to you. So I had another comment about this paragraph.
I think our concern is
Yeah,
it's going to be more after the pilot program that we really need to have this, you know, in place, right?
Yeah.
I would think you do your 10-year plan after, because we're asking for a 2-year, $5,000 pilot. And then,
What if you did 1, 2, and 5 year, right?
but
just
what,
figuring
I
out
don't
the
even
cost.
know what is 5. Like, we need to know if the 15 acres or whatever set aside work, and then how you could even size it, right?
Make the assumption that all 30 acres are viable.
Yeah, I don't know that you want to, I don't know that you want to make that assumption.
I mean, that's the business plan, right? We're going to assuming that we're going to be successful.
Can I interject for 2 seconds? There's no,
Hold on, name and address.
Andrew Slater, 75 Pheasant Hill Drive.
Thank you.
The way it's been set up is that it's not a 1 year, it's a 3 year. So 3 year, 5 year, 10 year is better. Don't even think about the first year because the oyster is going to take 2 years to grow. If you're in and you're serious about it, you're going to be in for 3 years. So first year, it's not even an option. It's a 3 year plan. Don't even start with 1 year, it's 3 years.
So what we're talking about is what's the town's 1, 3, 5 year expense, not what's the agriculture harvester's revenue. What we're asking is what are we going to expend as a town, and then making the assumption that.
Okay, my point is that getting another salary for another constable and so forth only takes place in possibly year 3. So the buoys and everything, and everything's set up, that's set up for 3 years. There's not even a 1 year.
So 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, just rough numbers would help the selectmen to understand what they may be considering.
Brian, I would just add that, and I know a number of the farmers have workaround plans, but the long-term plan for this town, because we want to be successful, is there has to be upwellers. We have to have that kind of support for them to grow these. And I know you can work around it right now, but if we're going to be serious, that should be in the 5-year plan.
Jamie, should it?
I think it should be, yeah. It all ties in with our, this is a difficult situation. We're in a very unique town where we're placing all this at like Scituate's back. We really want to be more visible, so having upwellers serves 2 purposes. It allows the farmers to more efficiently grow their seed, but it also gives a place for the townspeople to see what we're doing firsthand, you know. So I think it's definitely.
How about a definition of an upweller?
Well, that comes at a cost as well.
So an upweller is,
Or downweller.
downweller are systems that constantly pump water into cisterns and allow baby seed to grow.
To the point that it can be put in the farm.
Exactly.
And that can be done in the harbor.
Yes.
Yes, and transferred.
Okay.
So getting back to the document.
Yes.
4.2.a there. The last sentence, I'm not sure it belongs there. It refers for the first time about transfers, which we'll discuss later. But leaving that aside, it says both the transfer and the transferee must approve of the transfer. Shouldn't the town also have to approve the transfer as well?
I think in later document it does
Correct.
go through the exact process.
It does, but
I agree, right.
And it actually, doesn't even need to be there. I just whacked that sentence because you deal with transfers all later.
Yeah, it's kind of out of place.
But it was there, so I commented.
Well done.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome, Mr. Chair.
Anyone from the audience? Could you state your name, because I don't think anyone knows you.
Sure. Tony Vignani, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. This is going to come up heavily at our meeting. I've spoken to Jamie about this, and I've asked their committee to come up with creative ways to generate revenue from this process. I think the board supports the project overall, but we're taking a town asset and we're giving it to a business person to generate a business. And typically in situations like that, we get rent. You know, the town gets a return for the use of that asset. Take Go Green is some sort of an example to that. Guy does mulch, he rents a piece of property from the town, and the town gets, you know, $75,000 a year in rent. So I understand that it's kind of on a different scale of what you guys are doing, but there's got to be some sort of, you know, it could turn into the project that's over in Duxbury, right? Huge, huge operation, right? And I've spoken with him on a couple occasions, and he's like, it's ridiculous what I pay, right? I only have to pay $50 a year or something to the town, and the town puts all these resources into it. So somehow there's got to be some creativity, and it's got to, I've said this from day one when we talked about this stuff, so that, before you come to us, you've got to have that in order. You've got to have some creative ways for the town to not necessarily make money on this project, but to be aligned financially with what's going on.
So I referenced our conversation with Chris Scalacci from EMF, and we couldn't find a solution that would get us up into the, you know, ballpark of $500 to $1,000. It's just not allowed by state law. But I think we can find creative ways to increase it, but it's not going to be to that magnitude, I don't think. That was like $1,000 a month. And you know, certain towns have different ways of looking at this. Provincetown, for instance, Sue visited Provincetown, and they're buying things. They're spending money and not actually looking for anything.
So I'm not going to do it. There's all many other positive aspects to it for clean water. You know, we can say jobs, so there'll be a few jobs associated with it. There'll be other economic benefits from it. But the financial picture is going to be discussed, and it's got to be front and center. You know, I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole thing because we're on paragraph 2, and Rick's asked a question every other paragraph, so it's going to be a long evening. But I do want you guys to be sure that before you come to us that you've got some ideas.
But is there a number you're looking for? Are we supposed to be trying to hit a certain benchmark?
Well, I think you guys are talking about it. It's got to cover the cost of the town.
So if we have a budget and we can cover the cost of the budget.
I mean, that'd be a starting point, right?
I mean, just to, you know, so full disclosure, I sit on this board, yet I fully intend to obviously recuse myself, but I'd be applying for my own farm. As a farmer, I have no problem with paying more money. I mean, if the 5 farmers had to absorb even in the thousands of dollars to get this up and running, I think I could probably speak for most and say that they would be willing to do that. It's just a matter of allowing it to happen legally.
Well, that's why I threw it back to you.
Yeah.
Come up with some creative ways, and you're talking about them now, right? You're talking about the ways to do it, but $500 is nothing, right? You know, we're talking thousands, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars from between the whole operation to just cover the expenses of us hiring new people and resources.
Well, that's down the road, and I'm not sure about tens of thousands.
Well, we're considering
that's
that
creative,
road.
right? You don't need anything in year 1, but in year 3, maybe you do.
Or year 5, 10.
Right.
And I mean, I don't think this can, so we're starting as a pilot program with 5 farmers. I've said from the start, I don't think we're ever going to be in a position where we've got 30 farmers out there. I just don't think that we have the infrastructure to support it. So it's not, I think that the cost of this will only get so much.
I think we need to put it on paper.
We do.
So, again, come to us with ideas, right? I've said it.
We've been working on it. It's just, we
Right.
don't have a solution.
I just don't see anything. I mean, I see $25 and $100. It costs Nancy Holt more than $100 to.
Well, we intend to also hopefully invite someone from the state to come to the meeting so we can, you know, have a conversation. Hope this free.
In the back?
Yeah, Bill Graham, Tilden Ave. Can you explain the grid for Briggs Harbor and how that interfaces with the use of the sailboats, the kayaks, the power boats that go through there, and the tide that empties out at low tide?
Greg, you want to take a shot at that?
No. I don't know the area well there. When it comes to high tide, what's going on in there?
The basin empties out.
Yes, it's dry.
It's dry, it's flowing.
It's strong, yeah, so you could still navigate it at high tide with a kayak. I don't know at what point a power boat can go over it. There's going to be markers saying to stay out.
It's a no-wake zone as well.
Yeah,
So,
it is, yeah. It's a no-wake
You
zone.
have water skiing going on in there, you have tubing going on.
It's a no-wake zone, so I mean, I don't know how you.
Only in a very small area of it.
Most of it is not in the millways.
Scituate Waterways.
Well, there's going to be markers.
So the town of Dennis, where I currently have a farm, is in open water in Cape Cod Bay.
Do we have a grid that you can show?
Water skiing of the town of Dennis? Or the grid for Cohasset?
The grid for Briggs Harbor.
We do have it.
Can we put it back up?
We already showed it, yeah.
Can you put it back up and show us the outline
off track.
where your view would be?
This is off track.
So,
This is off track.
This is, yeah, way off track.
can we start again with your name and address, sir?
Yeah, Bill Graham, Tilden Ave.
All right, so I'll tell you what, we'll come back and show you the grid later. We did that at the beginning of this meeting, which we actually started later than 7, but in the interest to cover all this information, I'd rather get through this whole document, then we can come back to your question, all right?
Fine, thank you.
Sure.
Maybe the document.
Thank you, David.
Mr. Chair, this document is not location specific.
No.
Correct.
Correct,
Right.
It will,
By
it
design.
will.
Right.
Exactly.
by design.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm supporting that.
Thank you.
Rick, you had another comment about one.
Okay, application process. Ward 3. I don't believe that there's any issues from anyone on the board on this. The only issue was, so I'll get there before Rick Murray does, the contiguous, non-contiguous issue, you're fine with that, right? Because we talked it out at the last meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Number 3 there, I had questions about how the applicant must demonstrate on the application that the applicant has the right to access and use the land. I mean, are they just gonna write down? Yeah,
Private
I spoke
land,
to.
private land, right?
Yeah, number 3.
That's a good point. We could maybe add a couple suggestions, like ways to prove you own the land.
More than just saying, talk to Bill.
Okay.
Indeed.
I mean, like, there could be a handful of ways to show that. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks.
So, Mark?
I have a question on E. We're talking about the Shellfish Committee reviewing these applications, but this is for completeness only, correct?
Well, so, yeah, to start, you'd review it for completeness, to let people know that if they've missed something.
And then it goes back to the
Then
board.
then you would review it
Who would review
after
it?
that.
So, it looks to me like the Shellfish Committee is going to simply review it for completeness and then pass it to the Board of Selectmen for review.
No, I think further on down, we may detail that a little more. So the intent is for us to evaluate the application, not just check it for completeness.
Well, that's what it says.
In E, 4.3E,
Yes.
Guys, while you're looking at that, the application, the applicant does not apply for specific quadrants. He just applies 1, 2, or 3 acres. He's just applying for 1, 2, or 3 acres.
Where are you, David?
In this whole area, the no license shall cover all area. Go up a little bit more, this is about the application process. Go to a B again, and A, the whole title of this area is, of this section, is the application process. So, well, just on 4.3, the application process. The applicant is not applying for specific.
they are. On the application itself, I believe there's a line where you can apply for a specific.
1, 2, or 3, or
Yeah.
specific locations.
Right, we're going to number each one of those.
That's on the actual application.
Okay.
We're going to number each one of those.
So the selectmen will have to decide who they will award a grant to and then decide what parcel they'll give them.
If there's a conflict, I suppose.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't completely agree with that. I think the Shellfish Board should be issued the locations.
Right. In other words, if these
Which
farmers
would address-
know which is best.
Which would address the gentleman's navigation issue, rather than putting the first couple plots next to the edge of the channel, maybe we start the back corners or the middle
Work out.
side, so.
Okay, that's a good point. We can change it.
Because some areas are a little rocky, some areas are a little more sandy.
So that's number 1, which we would just take out.
No, you need that on the application.
Well, he's saying, what Mike is saying is that he does not agree with applying for a specific plot. You're applying for 1, 2, or
Because all
3.
those plots will be numbered or lettered,
Right.
1 through 32 or ABC, double
Right.
ABC, whatever, and you're being issued these plots. And the plots don't have to be contiguous either, so you could have a plot in the back corner, 2 in the back right.
If you wanted to.
Yeah, or you could
Well,
recommend,
can
hey,
we-
I want 3 in a row, or,
Can the licensee request?
yes, well, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we can put something in there where the licensee, if I'm understanding correctly, the licensee can request, but the shellfish constable will assign.
It's- If you don't
Does
do it
that-
in a
does
port,
that
hey,
sound-
I want to be front row at the
Sound like
harbor.
what we're talking
Well, sorry,
about?
not gonna be, we do third row. Okay, I'll take it. Either way, you're still far.
So the idea is longitude and latitude is in this number 1 in the application process. I mean,
Well,
how
maybe
many-
request it, or
it's just a zone, it's just a number,
Yeah,
1
yeah,
to 32.
yeah.
It's
They
not
can
longitude,
request,
it's just-
yep, they can
It's just
request.
1 to 32.
They can request.
There's over 4 corner points.
but if you're gonna use this.
Hold on 1 second, because there was a conversation that was going on between these two, so we just, he never got an answer. I never got an answer on Regs.
Yeah, I'm not sure I got an answer regarding the Shellfish Advisory Committee to review the application package for completeness.
So it's E.
And I'm looking at completeness only because they're gonna then have the licensing authority review it.
Well, I think we need to add wording that we're going to look at it for completeness, but also
Okay.
for.
I know exactly what happened, that's my fault, and I'll correct it. We originally had the town clerk would review it for completeness, and that was then not an option. So I thought that we would review it for completeness, but I see how it's circular now, so let me
Got it.
point that out.
Thank you.
It's
Yep.
addressed later.
It's addressed later, but I need to
In
clean
what
it up
section?
to make sure, yeah, I don't know,
Okay,
but,
way in the back.
but thank you.
Ryan Yates, Countryway.
I'm sorry, a little louder.
What's that?
Could you repeat it? Yeah,
Ryan Yates, Countryway.
thank you.
Where in Scituate Harbor are you propose these upwells to go? And does each grant get granted a spot in Scituate Harbor? I mean, there's,
We aren't.
No idea.
so each grant gets granted a spot in Scituate Harbor for an upwell?
No, no. So right now, we're talking about a spot in Briggs Harbor.
I understand.
Right.
In Briggs Harbor, that's where the grants are located. Now you're talking about having all these upwellers for grant owners in Scituate Harbor?
No,
Just thinking.
We're saying down the road, there may be costs with upwellers that should be considered, not we're putting them out all over the place.
And where would you propose those three would go?
We're not. This is a vehicle to set up aquaculture, rules and regulations in Scituate Harbor.
That's kind of a major point, is it not? Where are you gonna upwell these things?
No, not for the pilot program on this one. I understand what you're talking about is if and when we did something in Scituate Harbor and the rivers, the need for that, but this, in order to get
So
this,
Briggs Harbor has nothing to do with, you can't have any sort of upwelling system for the
Not the first 2
hatchery
years.
to bring them to
Not the
the
first 2
grant.
years.
Can I take a shot at it?
yes, you may.
So, what I said earlier, my point on this is, each of the farmers have a plan to work around not having an upweller, or doing the upwelling somewhere else in another town. But what I said is that within the 5-year plan, it's going to have to happen, because it's important for the success of the farmer. If you're buying your product at a much higher price now because you don't have an upweller, and then you have a bad year, and you will have a bad year, because if you look out there in Briggs Harbor, you see whitecaps breaking on the beach. You're going to lose equipment, you're going to lose product. So I believe the town, I know we all want it to be successful, an upweller system somewhere has to be in the long-term plans. And the long-term plan to me is 5 years.
And to that point, the 5-year plan, anyone that has a grant, are they going to be designated some of these zones? I mean, is that something to be talked about at a later point? I mean,
I haven't even started yet, to be honest with you. I'm not aware of any.
I think after the 2 years, part of the 2-year review, that we're going to move forward or we're not going to move forward.
I'm just concerned with the room in Scituate Harbor, would that even
Yeah.
be proposed? I mean, it's kind of preposterous.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Can I add one comment to that sentence that Howie was talking about?
Sure.
The Board of Selectmen are going to need recommendations from people, so we don't want to get something that's complete we want the experts to tell us what they see in the package. I mean, we can make an ultimate decision, but we're going to need the committees that are involved to actually give us feedback.
It's down there in the document.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, it
under
is
the
in there.
document.
Let me, I just need to order it. Yeah.
We're on page 2, there's 14 more involved, and 15 more.
Yeah, I was like,
But they're good comments and important, thank you.
It's Brendan Murphy, Tilden Road. Just going back to you're saying remove the Latin long, but if you're going to use this longer term and eventually there'll be other open spots other than Briggs Harbor, you might want to.
But I thought that the town, tell me if I'm wrong, committee, the town is identifying plots that have been GPS coordinated and surveyed.
Yeah.
And they could have numbers. Let's say this is B1, Briggs Harbor 1 through Briggs Harbor 32. That's it. You're applying, you don't need the latitude and latitude.
I think he's saying for future, if
You'll
we
still
have the
have-
river, if we open up, if the river is opened up more than just conditionally, there may be
This
opportunities.
document can change also.
Okay.
It sure can. It's a regulation, not a bylaw.
So
So
right
it's-
now, for this pilot program, it's B1 through B32.
And we're concentrating on Briggs Harbor only
Right.
because it's
Permitted.
And we're looking at only 15 acres of the 32.
That you will decide.
Huh?
You might only put out B1 through B15.
Right.
That's it. But again, this.
Okay, so, shall I move down?
please do.
Notice of public hearing.
Just a quick question about 4.4. Does the definition of a butter include adjacent towns, like Cohasset or Marshfield? I mean, if they're in a butter, or is the butter is a term only restricted to another private property? And the reason I ask is obviously with access issues and things like that, right?
I think it's just private property, but I don't, I don't have an answer to that.
We might want to consider in the spirit of good neighbors with our fellow towns, making sure that the adjacent towns, if a shared waterway,
I think it's a distance.
the distance.
We had
yeah.
full intention of including Cohasset in our conversations, but we wanted to get this document to a.
Oh, I
place
totally
where we
dig,
could
I get it, but
feel comfortable
when
doing
this
that.
is rolled out, we don't, well, I would imagine the town would not want to be accused by other towns of doing stuff without full visibility. So I think just putting some words in there about if a shared waterway, right? I know as a Scituate guy, if Cohasset was starting to do something and I read about it in the Mariner, much as I love the Mariner, and that was the first time I heard about it, I'd be a little ticked.
Yeah.
That's all. Trying to make friends ahead of time.
We've even had discussions about including Cohasset in the future in the farms, if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
possible.
There's a question in the
That's
back.
possible, right?
Lauren Gibbons, Schofield Road, Cohasset. Were any Cohasset officials notified of this meeting? Since it's
Yes.
going to be who?
Tim Harris,
Who?
he's your harbor chairman.
Tim Davis?
Tim Davis, I'm sorry.
Okay, he's not here. Anybody else?
So this
He's
was,
just chairman of an advisory committee. He's
That's
not a
correct.
town official.
Just like you, Brian.
he's correct, he's like me, he's nobody.
You ain't no one, man.
So this was posted on our, both the Scituate website, the Shellfish website, the Waterways website. I met with members of the harbor committee, told them about it. Jim Boudreau, who's our town administrator, my vice chairman Howie, and I met with Chris Senior. You know Chris Senior?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And back in December and told him that we were moving towards this. So.
But you didn't tell them about this meeting going on tonight.
This meeting was posted publicly.
But you did not tell a town official about, you
No.
didn't send them
Am I up?
an email.
I'm sorry. So again, what we'd like to do is review this instead of debating who and what we
Right,
spoke with.
he was talking about in spirit of good neighbor policies. I was just
We've been in close
continuing.
conversations with them, and we've told them about this, so I'm sorry. I didn't send an invitation to anyone here, but everybody found their way. Yes?
Yeah, I'm Greg Wallingford, one of the board members like Cohasset. I'm also on the board of the Cohasset Conservation Trust. We own Worship Bassing, so I found it about it through these locals. I mean, it's open, Cohasset.
No, I was just wondering, did they notify, Cohasset
An official
officials about
notification,
this
no.
meeting tonight.
And I only
In the
raised,
spirit of good nature.
I only raised the point, so future conversations don't go down this path. Yes.
This is our first draft.
Yeah.
So,
No, just this meeting.
I know.
Notifying.
And this section is about public hearings, so we're agreeing.
Okay, so we'll have it.
Are you talking about the public hearings now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, 4.4.
All right, I was doing something this afternoon, and I'm questioning the process here. It seems to me the Board of Selectmen approve an application. The application has to go to the Department of Marine Fisheries for approval. If the Marine Fisheries approves it, it has to go to the Army Corps of Engineers. And from there, after then we go to public hearing because there's been a sequence of approvals before the hearing.
It's the board, once the Board of Selectmen approve it, then they go to the Marine Fisheries, not before.
I agree with you.
Okay.
From Marine Fisheries, it goes to Army Corps.
Okay.
Army Corps says, okay, comes back to Selectmen. Now the process starts, a 60-day process, and the public hearing process, because you have an approved application by the appropriate people. Maybe I'm missing something.
Would that be the awarded, you're talking about the awarded, the Board of Selectmen would decide to award an approved applicant,
Yes.
contingent on these other approvals
Yes.
and a public hearing.
Right.
Once the Board of Selectmen has approved an applicant, that applicant doesn't need to go back before the Board of Selectmen.
I don't disagree. It now goes to the Department of Fisheries, Fisheries to Army Corps. Army Corps says, fine, now you have an approved application. Now we go to public hearing because we have something tangible to talk about.
Public hearing.
You mean that public hearing?
Uh-huh.
No, I think this public hearing
No.
is before all that.
Yeah.
This is the,
Pre,
following receipt of a completed application.
But it's not a complete application if it hasn't been approved by the state, the Army Corps.
No, it's
So it's-
it's a completed application
With a small
It's
C.
not approved.
for us. Like
So
we
why
are-
does the applicant have to notify abutters? I'm confused.
It's a state
It's the
law.
MGL section.
So every applicant,
60.
is it a boilerplate thing, just notifying abutters that you're applying?
Yep.
We know who all the abutters
Green
are,
cards and
so
all
they
that.
could be.
By distance.
Green cards. It's required in conservation, everything, planning.
All right, so.
You know what might be
So these regs
helpful?
state, obviously are stating what we're doing, Board of Selectmen. It's not
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen, but it's regulating Scituate. So beyond that would be another process.
So how we-
this is that public.
Yeah, to Howie's point, it might be nice having a flow chart.
They exist for sure. There's,
Yeah. Wire-
I mean, we have them like somewhere.
Need not
In
file it,
the, maybe in the presentation?
Yeah, or even in here, as shown in attached, I don't know if regulations.
The next one of these meetings, we would advise any of the
Maybe.
potential applicants about the process.
Yep.
That's all.
Have that in the
because of
presentation.
Tony Vignani's basic question, there's a lot of activity that needs to occur at the Board of Selectmen.
Before the Board of Selectmen.
The entire process.
Yeah.
Approving, maintaining, and qualifying it. And we need to make them aware of what that's going to entail.
I agree. 4 or 5.
Keep going. Applicants for new licensing.
So on 4.5B, you want to go to A?
I go to B. I'm glad Mr. Vignani has decided to stick around despite my verbosity. I got a real issue with the idea of transferring, which is a big one. And it's from this point forward and dealing with everything else. Because then you start getting into what you guys are proposing later on for a, not a wait list, but during a moratorium, the list in order of application.
Pre-qualified.
Is that all? Yeah, thank you. And that's related to transferring as well. I would like to hear a lot more about the merits of having a transfer as opposed to if you're in a situation where a license would be transferred, why it just doesn't end and then it go back into the pool of being available for anybody's access. Because I worry that the transferring could be ending up being with an effect of excluding potential other people who would be interested in coming in and running a farm.
So I have a question. Does transfer to you means for sale?
Yes.
So can someone buy?
A person far more suspicious than I
with all
might
that?
suggest that. Yeah. So that's just one thing. In many ways, these things can be cooked. And there's other ways that not cooking could do it. But even you could transfer from, I think as proposed within a family. And I understand after, it's a family business and mom and the daughter and the son have put a ton of effort into it. I get it. And there's a certain emotional and fiscal and sweat equity ownership mentality of that. But if we're looking to serve the greatest number of potential farmers, I think that you gotta have a more easy way or a more, easy way to bring in new blood. And that if a transfer situation were to arise, that rather than have a transfer, it's just done. And then that lease becomes potentially available, word gets put out, and any of the other people out there, other than those precious few that have the current licenses, are able to jump in the game, including the potential transfer. So the other person could absolutely be eligible, certainly not excluded, but just to open it up.
I just have a process question. So
Sure.
right to transfer and right to inherit is page 13 of the 18, section
Thank you.
8.6 and 8.7. Now, granted, the word transfer is in this, but
Right, so
Can we
I
hold
don't
off?
know if you
No,
want to
I'd
hold
like- Can we hold off
off
for that?
process-wise.
Sure, we could hold off. The only reason, you're absolutely right, and I mentioned it because the word transfer appears in virtually every single one of these, so I thought I would bring it up here. And if you want to talk about it later, that's groovy too.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one question? Why didn't the town just keep a few lots and make it a community thing? If you want to have access to.
Talk about
So
future
that's
farming.
actually in
That's-
section 8.
That's an interesting idea, and I think that, personally, I think that's great, but that's different than transferring of an extant license.
Yeah, that would be the non-commercial. There's a section on non-commercial, which would be have suggested a set aside of a couple acres for any kind of non-commercial, whether it's research, education, the high school, or any other entity. Cohasset centers.
CCSCR?
CCSCR,
Yeah.
something like that. CS.
It does seem there's 90% of towns allowed for transferability, so I guess.
And all states around us, every state around us allows transferability. Maine, New Hampshire, Virginia, Connecticut, New York, Maryland. Actually, we're the only state that allows the Commonwealth to dictate what happens with agriculture. Every other state takes that upon themselves.
Sure, and I'm willing to concede that other people are far more experienced in this than I am, smarter than I am. It just, I'm the one sitting here and I flag that. I've got problems with that. Maybe we can do better than all these other towns. I don't know. Maybe we should pull them and see if they love the transfer idea. I don't know. I'd like to learn more.
Bob Wigmore.
At the proper time. At the proper time. The chair told me to wait, so we'll
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Or if you want to talk about it.
we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we hold off transfer until about midnight? Thank you. So, this section,
This section is
on B,
titled,
I read the first sentence. Licenses shall be granted. Thank you. Blah, 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 60 days received, blah, blah, blah. Unless an extension is granted by written agreement by the applicant. Or what? Or what happens? In other words, if the Board of Selectmen doesn't do anything, and it goes to day 61, what happens?
Then it's granted, or renewed, amended, or transferred.
Which one is it?
I guess that's at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, isn't it?
So
at least as this is written.
Isn't it up to whatever the person's applying for? I mean, if it's a grant application, or a renewal application, or an application to amend, or an application to transfer, if such transfer.
So they're all individual events, and if the Board of Selectmen doesn't act on it on day 61, it automatically becomes...
What's that called, passive approval? If you don't act on something, then it's done?
We had passive approval in there, it was rejected, I believe, by this board.
But that's what it is.
No, we had it actually written
We had it
differently,
written
we had
that would
it
be
more
approved.
solid.
More
We took the
solid?
word of about.
Well, I think just the opposite. You guys had it written so that it would automatically.
Automatically approve.
Exactly.
And we said no to that.
No.
Exactly, yeah.
it would
But
almost
but it still seems to say that to me.
To me, I read that as passive agreement.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to prevent.
So, if,
So this is again MGL.
so,
No, actually, there's
That's
nothing,
why we
there is
really
no,
need town
there is no
council.
decision, there is no, it doesn't exist in there, which is a problem.
Yeah,
That's a similar problem.
so first thing, they don't define days, and so one of the things I requested early on was to stretch it out to give it business days versus
Yeah.
calendar days. But if I'm reading this right, the Board of Selectmen gets an application and has to act on it within 60 days, or else it's granted. Is
It
that
doesn't
right?
say that in there, though. It says in 60 days, it has to, it says it right there, the first word is granted. It can be granted, it can be renewed, it can be amended, transferred, or denied. That's actually has both of them in there. So the 60 days, just to touch on that, Brian, is MGL. I think we tried to see if we could go longer because we worry about the process.
Yeah.
Right.
But we can't.
It doesn't define whether it's calendar or business, correct? It just says 60 days.
It
It
just says 60
says 60 days as it's
Right.
written,
as
yes.
it's written.
So we didn't deviate from MGL. However,
So what is the waterways recommendation for that paragraph?
First of all, town
Just
council
straight
table.
denial?
Town council's got to
First of all, town council reviews it and figures out whether or not it can be granted in 60 days, number one. Number two, that it be changed to business days as opposed to calendar days, because if somebody applies for a license, and maybe, Rick, I misunderstood your question from before, it's any one of those actions, if somebody's doing one of those, if they're applying for a license, that the Board of Selectmen, it becomes de facto granted. Am I wrong, or?
That's the way I read it.
The way I'm reading that,
Personally, fine.
it can be de facto automatically.
government accountability.
That's why I asked what you guys felt, how you guys felt
We should
about
be
that.
responding.
It's a big point, town council has to answer it.
Well,
We should be
yeah.
responding.
But what's the sentiment of this board? I recognize I might be in a minority.
So hang on, so this application has to go through first the Shellfish Advisory Board, then the waterways.
See, we've been discussing this lately because we know how much you guys have on your plate on a month-by-month basis. We typically meet twice a month. So I think we're definitely in a better position to review them. I'm not sure if it's, if you guys have the ability to squeeze that into your...
Jeremy, let me just go through the process.
So, hold on for a second.
Sure.
No. So in version 4, it did go to waterways. It's no longer, that was in A.
All right.
In A, it went to waterways, now it doesn't. So no, it does not come to
Right.
us.
We still have it on the presentation that way, which is why it's confusing.
So it still has to go, let's say you get 20 applications. And this is only the initial period, too.
Right.
Because in year 5 or 8 or 18,
It's not going to be.
you might have a list of 10 people that are pre-qualified. You've already gone through their applications. They're still waiting forever because the transferability takes place. So they're never going to get to the list, right? Like the morning. So to me, this 60 is just too short because you're going to take a month, at least 2 meetings to go through the first 15 applications, right? So then it's a month, and then Board of Selectmen only meets every other week. They're not going to be on their agenda. You know, it's not going to be a pending item on every agenda to be reviewed, so it's ludicrous.
I mean, maybe
I just
so,
think we have to meet more frequently and
Maybe we
get it
can-
done within-
Not you, it's the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, well, if we meet more frequently, then it'll get there.
And
no, it's
Again,
not,
only
it's not us
the-
as a state. Maybe we can, you know, if moratoriums can be granted on certain things, maybe we can ask to change that.
There should be 90
It
days.
says unless the
Yeah.
extension is granted by written agreement with the applicant.
The application, the applicant
Right,
has to.
and that's what MGL says, so the applicant can agree to an extension.
So
So we're kind of
I'm just concerned, 60 days is awful tight for it to go all the way through the Board of Selectmen with everything they're dealing with.
I agree.
Comment accepted. Yeah.
I know, comment, I'm sorry. The way to go around this is, that, as I said before, and I know it's not appreciated by some, but I'll say it again, is that if you have a rigid application process, after that point, it should be a lottery. Because I don't know how each of these boards and then the selectmen are going to read through 20 applicants and say, that's a B, that's a B minus, that's a A minus. I just.
So you think it should be a lottery from the start?
I think after, if you come up with the proper application process, which weeds out those who are not viable, then at that point, the fair way, it would be a lottery.
But that's our grading system is what is weeding out the ones that aren't viable.
But what I'm saying is that the application process is sound. The questions you ask, the things they have to have in place, insurance. That would be my opinion. I know it's not shared by some or many, but that's my view. I don't know how the selectmen or any of us can make a decision and not have some personal and business relationships cross into this. It's impossible. So, I'll leave
They
it
looked
there.
at all of our applications.
Yeah, Andrew Slater from 75 Pleasant Milligan. The whole point of this is we're trying to speed this up so the farmers can get equipment in at minimum March, April, and seed in. So this can be amended. This is not a bylaw. You can amend this, I think if it's automatically granted after 60 days, it should be that. You know, get the whole point in the first year is to get it going, get it up and running, and then this can be amended after the first year where it's 90 days or whatever. But the main thing here is to get it going for next spring. Mandatory.
The most important thing about making sure that we put viable, successful people out there is each individual applicant's business plan. It's not the application and answering a couple of questions. It's what they provide, you know, for us, the information, what their 5-year plan is, how they plan to market it, you know, all that goes into it. And that requires eyeballs, that requires people and instinct, and I don't think that a lottery system can do that. When we took Chris Scalacci, however many months ago it was, 6-7 months, out to Briggs Harbor, he flat out said, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not your amateur oyster aquaculture area. This is for people that, you know, should know what they're doing. And if you place this in the hands of a lottery, you will not get good results. That's, you know.
Those are his words. He said those are your words.
Okay. Yes, the last part is my words.
But Jamie, what I think David is getting at is, you are vetting out, let's say you get 20 applications and are issuing 5 permits, right? 5 farmers.
Right. The difference between 5 and 6 is so nebulous, could be.
Let's say there's 8 that are really qualified, right? How are you going to grade and differentiate between 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the selectmen to choose who gets the...
If those ones that are so close, will be for them to ultimately make a decision.
That's right. And that's what
I mean, it's not our decision.
I would say it's like lobstermen, right? You've got a whole bunch of lobstermen, right? They all have licenses to do it, they have insurance, they have all the other stuff they need. How do you really determine who's got a better business plan to do it, who doesn't?
And it may not be the first 5, it is 10 years from now.
Yeah.
When a guy dies and it's not transferable, there's nobody to transfer to, and there's one plot of 2 acres that are available, you have 5 people that have been pre-qualified. I wouldn't ask the Board of Selectmen to pick one of those guys. It's just not fair to the other 4 guys.
And as I've said before, there are young adults today graduating college who are studying this aquaculture, who want to get into this business, and we're just saying it's not possible, you don't know enough to get into this. And I think if they put together a business plan and they meet the application process, it should be a lottery, and they should have every chance to enter it.
Financial wherewithal probably is on the application.
So in most towns, in almost every other town, it's first come, first served. We're in a unique situation because we decided to look at this bigger picture and accept a wave of applications. This is unusual. This doesn't usually happen. In most towns, it's first come, first served. But, you know, for instance, when I applied a couple of years ago, informally, there was nothing to apply to. So we had to, that's where we are now.
Connie?
Yeah, my only comment on the completed in 60-day thing is, maybe the process is it's not complete until your board reviews it. So you're reviewing it for completeness, the 60-day clock does not start until you are done.
So
That goes back
instead
to-
of haggle with the state, we define complete. We define 60-day clock as starting when it's complete.
When it gets in front of the board of
That's
selectmen.
That's
Complete and
All
reviewed by
future
the
board of
board.
selectmen
That's
will
a
be
creative
60 days.
solution.
Well, it says that, doesn't it, Tony? Within 60 days after receipt at the BOS office. And the only way to...
But we have to decide that it's
Yeah,
complete.
they have to.
Yeah.
The initial
But
application.
isn't the only way it gets to BOS, is after you know?
We can, that's a good point, let me.
And work that. I think he's right, work that.
You got a member of the audience?
Yes, Sam Brigham, 24 Buttonwood. The word completeness has been said several times. Will there be any sort of transparency on what like a bare minimum requirement completed application would be composed of?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so we plan to post an application online.
And in that time, in those benchmarks? of
Right.
timing,
So you would
when do
have,
anticipate that happening?
yep, so you would have what you need to submit to the application, and an actual application you can type into.
Right. And then just given from the earlier presentation, there's like benchmarks of desired timeframes to abide by. When do you anticipate making that available?
From the Board of Selectmen as we can.
Right.
I mean,
When this has been, when the rules
when
and
the
regulations
rules
have
and
been approved.
regs would have to be approved, and then
Town
we
council.
would be ready to go. So once the Board of Selectmen, my understanding is the Board of Selectmen would approve the rules and regs, and then make sure town council's okay with it. And then immediately after that, we would be posting an application and notify of when it would be due. So.
Can I just ask one question of Tony and Sean? Right, how do you guys feel about a lottery system on picking those applicants versus you guys taking those applications and picking them yourself?
You want to go first, Tony? No, you can go.
I agree with Sean.
I'm gonna know almost every application personally.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, I just hadn't said anything. Wouldn't be the first time a group at Town Hall awarded contract, a plot. A lot of times, Al Bangert and DPW, and he would form a group to look at a proposal or some type of project without looking at the name. They grade it, and then look at the names, and they can, everyone put it on the table and see where the chips go. Maybe something like that might work. Because I'd have a problem looking at the, I know almost everyone in the room.
Yeah.
So that would be hard. I'd almost have to recuse myself.
Yeah. So to that point, would a lottery system work better? Would it just kind of
But
draw?
to Jamie's point, I can see his, I mean, this is
Yeah, I know.
this is not your average, and I don't know anything about it, I just know enough to get in trouble. There are gonna be challenges with
So
this.
you make a
So
bad
to Jamie's
decision to
point,
get them.
it's not for, and then I agree with Dave. How does a young guy get into it? You know, you have to have experience. You never can get experience unless someone gives you a start. So.
You work for somebody. You work with somebody and then you want to transfer to that pilot program.
Exactly. I mean, the only thing that you have some flexibility with, I agree with Sean, I don't like it being just totally random, because I think there are stronger candidates than weaker candidates. But like Dave said, eventually you're going to get to the point where there's 6 strong candidates in one slot. But you don't have to give everyone 3 acres either. I mean, there's a way to manipulate, you can get more people involved by giving out less sizable lots. So I think there's some flexibility, and somebody mentioned, you know, keeping a couple lots on the side as well. No one wants to have the perception that anyone's feeding a license to somebody that they know. So anything we can get away from that and giving it to the most qualified person, I think is what the board would do.
But don't we, and I disagree with what you're saying, but don't we need to tell the public what the criteria is for evaluation?
I think that's what the young man back here was
They
saying.
can complete it rather than just, and who is going to be qualified to review that? What makes the advisory committee, for instance, qualified to do it?
well, they know more than anybody else does.
We've immersed ourselves in this topic for the past 7 or 8 months.
We don't know if that's the proper policy.
But you're not gonna be reviewing it, right? You're gonna be recusing yourself.
Well,
And you're the most knowledgeable.
I'm not sure that's, I mean, I'm not going to be making a decision on, and maybe I even have to recuse myself from specifically grading, but not being able to give input on whether somebody is qualified or not, you know,
I would
point
think
by
you'd have
point,
to.
I think would be crazy.
You have to.
The town could get town council's input as to whether you would need to recuse or not. That's town council issue.
But there may be another selection committee that includes your board, and other people that know what they're doing.
Well, it's you guys, I mean, it's the board's.
No, to do the grading.
Can I ask a question? You've got a lot of people in the room that are interested in this subject. Could you raise your hand if you plan on applying?
Thinking about it. 8, 10 people. 8 to 10.
You want to put your hand up?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 12 or 15 maybe?
And a few people have left already. They got worn out.
And Tony, there's a critical mass too. I don't know anything about this farm, but 1 acre may not be enough to make the money, you know,
It is.
they need 2 acres. Is it?
1 acre is enough to make plenty of money.
What's the average though for the guys in Duxbury? I mean, the guys I know have over 5 acres.
It's, they're different though. They're broadcasting on the ocean floor, they require more. This will be off bottom in the year, you really don't need 1 acre.
So
The average and
The other thing is,
from the...
what happens when you lose them all?
What do you mean?
Well, with a big storm.
Right.
I mean, that.
Then you start over again.
I know, but that's what I'm saying, 1 acre. You know what I mean? Spread out.
Excuse me, can we get your name and address?
Lawrence Strobridge, Tilden Road.
Thank you.
My family has 2 acres in Dennis. We grow about 1.5 million oysters on 2 acres, and we could probably grow 2.5. That's just on 2 acres. So it's definitely financially viable to do it on 1 acre for sure. I think you've seen towns shy away from doing things on like a half an acre because that speaks more like a hobby. But 1 acre is definitely doable.
What's a 2 million on 1 acre?
On 2 acres.
On 2 acres.
Yeah, but I know, but the guy right next to me is trying to grow 1.5 on 1 acre. You just have to increase.
But you're not harvesting. I mean, you're really gonna have to harvest like 1 million oysters at least to be sustainable a year.
Not necessarily. 1 million oysters a year at, let's say, the cheapest that you would sell for is roughly 50 cents a piece, is $500,000.
Right.
That's pretty good on my mind.
Yeah, it's like a large expense, especially for the first 10 years, where it breaks average over a year.
But this is stuff that should be discussed, you know what I mean? I think.
No, I know, but to be viable and sustainable, I mean, you can't have us 12 guys, you know, whatever, 6 guys, 5 guys, whatever it is, to start the pilot program, and every winter lose all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's gonna be.
Speaking from experience, like, so.
It'd be like lobster in there.
We're
on the blades for the winter, I mean, it gets rough.
In Dennis, right on the bicep of Cape Cod Bay, it's unprotected, much more unprotected than this, and we seem to do fine.
Sure. Last question, and we really got to get back on track.
Yeah, this is back to that.
I'm sorry, your name and address.
Ray Hooper, Cedar Court. I was just thinking about how you were saying you have to recuse yourself. I know there's a lot of oyster guys out here that wouldn't have vested interest in this process, other than they would be asked to help and volunteer or possibly in some way bring in some experts, outside experts, to grade the applications.
Okay.
Good.
That's great.
Thank you.
Retire again.
Thank you. All righty.
Move on.
I'll look to the other side. Any questions on any of this section on the alphas? B through G, all the way actually, do it slow, but all the way to 4-6.
Keep going.
We're pretty clean all the way to 4-6 in the last round.
4-6, okay.
Actually, I have a question about K. Well, back up.
Okay, okay.
I think K.
Okay.
So, K, right in the middle there, It says failure of the authority to obtain such a DMF certification within 1 year of approval of license will cause the approval to be revoked. So here I worry that, so the authority is the Board of Selectmen, right? So if the Board of Selectmen were to not even submit or try to go to DMF, then the applicant would get, the short end of the stick there, right? So I
If it
wonder.
takes longer than a year for once the application has been
Correct, but I'm just
put in.
certainly not this current board, but let's look at a board 20 years from now, composed of fictitious people. Let's say they're completely anti the whole idea. They just wouldn't submit it to DMF. They're not going to get the DMF cert within a year, and you're cooked.
If they've already approved this application, why would they do that? In other words.
Different board, it
Yeah.
changes every year.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to build in some protection for you folks. Take a look at that.
Yeah, good point.
Go back to G for a second, too.
We don't go
That
back.
comes from my time in Washington, not on the board.
Zip lines.
G.
This is in our rules and regulations, I guess. The areas are defined, right? It's just saying where the areas are.
Yep. Go ahead, Greg, go with 4-6.
No, I'm sorry.
There you go. Again, 4-6, are there any questions? There weren't last time, but I'm not sure if something changed. Or is there any questions from the floor?
Just a minor point, are C and D different, or they should be combined or something? Is there different between being a bona fide domiciled resident and written proof of residency? Just take a look at that.
Redundant?
Looks like redundant or something, I don't know. Just flag it for council.
So,
I don't get it. We almost don't need to discuss it, it's just, we understand the point, you gotta be here for a year at least, blah, blah, blah.
right, but then
I don't
that's
understand.
the
It breaks it down.
It breaks it down.
What is required?
Ownership, a lease of the property, those are the proofs that we would
Okay.
accept.
All right,
So
thank you.
yes, you have to live there, and that's the different kinds of proof that you can submit.
Okay,
And
thank you.
it's probably taken from some, you know.
Yeah, that's fine. Just curious.
So I got a question on 4.7A. How many years before they can be harvested? 2 years?
Depends on how big you buy your seed, but I mean, yeah, 18 months, I mean, you can probably do it a little sooner than that if you bought bigger seed.
All right, I'm just questioning 2 years. If you can, after 2 years, you can have a harvest.
Oh, before that, I mean, one could conceivably buy one,
Yeah.
1.5 inch seed in March and be selling some petites by November.
Unlikely.
Unlikely.
18 months at best, like, if you want to.
At best or at worst?
At best. 18
Well, it depends
months.
on how big you
Well,
buy
it
your
depends on
seed.
the size of the seed, but then you're paying more money too, so.
But some, I have firsthand knowledge of some people that I think are willing to do that, so there could be some people selling some in
I'm
the
sure there's
first
some
year.
superstars out
So
there.
two
you know,
years
for
is at
the
least
average.
Yeah.
2 years is an okay time.
This gets back to the fact that if we don't have upwellers, then many people will have to buy larger seed, but they'll beat the market quicker, make less money.
And then after the initial period, 5.
So with B there, there's some ambiguity. It says the first renewal of a license shall be for 5 years from the date of issuance. Since it's a renewal, one could interpret that saying the date of initial issuance, which would only then be 3. So you might want to say for the date of issuance of the renewal. Again, I'm just trying to look out to make sure that your interests are long.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
From date, it's the last part of that sentence, right?
Yeah, date of issuance of the renewal.
I found it. Yep.
Sean?
I just wanted, if we could just back up for 1 second, talk about residency for a second. I know a lot of commercial fishermen, some might be in the room now and some might have just left, that grew up in Scituate, that have commercial boats, commercial licenses, that don't live in Scituate. Are they a resident?
No, they're not.
They
It's
pay,
not with
they
this.
have documented vote in Scituate, they pay taxes, so they pay users' fees.
What does a boat have to do with anything?
How are you gonna
I'm
get
just,
that?
I'm just,
We were
just
talking
throwing
about
out
it
there.
being
There's some in this
Scituate.
room right now that raise their hand, all right, that don't live in Scituate. And I would say that they would have every right to apply. They could probably do better than.
They don't live in town, Sean. That's one of the rules and regs. is you
Just,
have to live in
that's
Scituate.
fine, just.
Sean, I think most of
David,
the
Are you
towns require,
suggesting,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what you're
I think all the towns require.
I was gonna say, almost every single town in the state require residency, and I'll give you a case in point of one where it backfired, and this is Falmouth. Very recently, in the past couple of years, last year, I think, didn't have a residency requirement. And Cape Cod Oyster Company in Hyannis basically branched out their farm, and they're already giant as it is. They don't need to get any bigger, and yet they went next door to Falmouth, and they were given a farm. So this is where it backfired. I don't think it was their original intention, but since that's happened, I believe they now have a residency requirement. I completely get your point. I just think
Without
it
naming
gets tricky.
names, I mean,
But I think you're speaking to a specific, if somebody had a boat in Scituate. Is that what you're,
Well, they
or is a lobster?
They're born, raised, and you get pushed out of town.
Okay.
Right, I think he's looking to protect
Yeah, no,
those that were worth protecting.
right, so I guess you're not saying like everybody, but
Right, exactly.
possibly a born and raised or,
And have fished out of this harbor for many, many.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if we
Or-
put
yeah.
something in there that leaves it, to the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, then that, I don't know, I mean, that's the only thing I have, that's the only suggestion that I would have.
I mentioned that because it's.
Have to get passed down the council. Tucker?
Okay, like Sean's talking, you can have two people on an application. So one person could be out of town, or both people have to be.
Both people.
both have to be residents.
I didn't know if that was.
So don't somebody else move to.
David?
Dave Donovan, Clap Road, Scituate. This came up during one of the meetings. I've been able to attend most of the working meetings. On your recreational shellfish license, you have to prove that you're a taxpayer. And this regulation as written has to be residential domicile, however you want to go with. So there's a conflict between recreational and if you're a commercial grower. And then we got into defining taxpayer, if you're excise tax, or you're a property tax, or, does a property owner have any more right for town-wide decisions than a resident who just is a tenant in a housing? I understand the discussion of residency and application, but there's just some conflict on how you want to go about it, and it's, I think you have to go to either taxpayer or resident, and if
You
you're
don't
going to
have
do
a
that.
taxpayer, though, you have to be up to date on your taxes, like you can't be delinquent.
No, I'm saying for a recreational shellfish license right now at the town hall, you have to be a taxpayer. You get the taxpayer rate or the out-of-town rate, or non-taxpayer rate, I guess is how it is. So it's taxpayer or non-taxpayer. That's how that's written. So, and this is more towards residency, which really restricts. The purpose of it, I believe, was so that a company doesn't come in and buy up or acquire all the farms and become the Ocean Spray of oysters around here.
Right.
And the small individual family farmer is put out of business. That's ultimately, that was, I believe, the intent of how it was discussed. So, again, when you get to that point, is a taxpayer, property taxes, whatever it might be, boat, excise, whatever goes on, do they have any less foothold in a town than a resident who pays no taxes to the town?
No, I don't think so.
I pose that as a question, a discussion.
A resident could be renters.
Right, I think it's the same, yeah.
And that does say that if you're a renter, you provide a copy of the lease, right?
Right.
Right, that's one way to.
So is this something that legal to take a look at?
I don't think so. I think it's a choice that the town has to make, because do we want local people being farmers? That's the decision.
Right.
We do.
Yeah, we decided that, we discussed that way early on.
So that's the end, now we have to figure out the means, and it's, I don't think you have to be a homeowner to farm oysters.
And again, we're talking about oysters, but there's all kinds
Or
of.
clams, or, yeah, mussels, kelp.
To be discussed.
Keep going.
Yeah. 4-7? I think we hit that already, correct? Yes.
You good with that?
5? Anything on 5-0, 5-1?
You going too fast?
No?
People are liking.
These all been pulled from other areas, so these
Yeah.
are pretty standard.
Almost all of this documentation pulled
MGL,
from
right.
like 7 or 8 different towns'
Yes.
regulations.
I have a question of 5.3.
Okay?
So it states that you have to have 3 acres total. No more than 3
No more
acres.
than 3.
So I believe the comment was raised earlier, why not make it 1 acre? I would support the idea, especially during the so-called pilot program, that you have 1 acre farms while we figure out if they're even going to work. So if there's only 30 acres or whatever the working amount's going to turn out to be in the end, and right away in the first pilot program you give away 15 acres, why do we need to do that? So I would suggest either we have more farmers and 1 acre, or the same 5 farmers but 1 acre.
So, I want to understand, you're suggesting either 5 acres with 5 farmers or 15 acres with 15?
No, I'm suggesting 1 acre per farmer.
So five.
Right, 5 acres
And if you
and
want to
5
stay,
farmers.
if you want to stay with 15, then you add more farmers, and obviously there's a lot of interest here, and they all should have a chance.
We have to be mindful of the resources that we have
Yeah,
around
I
us now.
mean, that-
And the-
we get back to the cost of.
And the only other thing I'll add to this is every town, I researched Duxbury in great detail. Duxbury has a 3 acre minimum also. Yet- Excuse me, Matt keeps saying, I'm sorry. Yet Island Creek has 15 acres. And many of them,
Privately, yeah.
no, they're the dad's name, the son's name, the director of operations name. So there's a way you can put 3 acres, but we all know, everyone knows how to get around it. You put one in your name, one in your wife's name, and it still happens. So if you're going to put the sentence here, one, do we believe it's meaningful? Because people go around it all the time. But my initial point was, I think 1 acre would be a good number.
I just don't think we ever want to have 30 farmers out there. I don't think we have.
This is a pilot program.
Right.
1 acre, I think, is a good idea.
I don't think 1 acre is enough.
It's impact.
Yeah, the industry standards at least
Enough
2.
to support a sustainable fishery or agriculture. It really.
All the conversations up to this point was 1 was enough. But I understand, I appreciate your point.
Yeah.
So
Can we agree on 2 then?
2?
Well, we might want to increase it to 3, but, and again, this is the Board of Selectmen's choice. If you can apply for 3, but you might only get issued 2.
Yeah.
And this decision doesn't need to be made now, I don't think.
We can
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss it more, but this was our
Because
recommendation.
we can read this document this way. In the pilot program, we can spell out some exceptions to this document. Right?
But I think, yes, with the pilots, and I believe you with the 3, and you need more. But I do worry about the other part Dave said about daisy chaining things from people being affiliated and getting the name one.
Let him finish, please.
And I don't know how to combat that.
Every grant has to be reviewed by the Board of Selectmen. And if it's a transfer, it has to be reviewed by the Board of Selectmen. So if somebody else's name is on it, and you don't think they should get it, don't approve it.
That's a fair point.
Other towns don't
If
seem to be able
there's not
to.
enough diversity and there's too many spouses and kids trying to apply, then they have the ability to.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, why did Duxbury allow that to happen?
Yeah.
Right, I mean, if it's not, why, how can a selectman stop something that's legally accessible?
Yeah.
Correct, I mean,
They probably make a lot of money for that. Just guessing.
How?
$25.
How?
The people buying things that work for them, they've got a lot of people.
Like Duxbury, the name Duxbury,
It's synonymous with
synonymous
oysters now.
with oysters.
I still think, though, that needs to, Craig, you make a good point, but on the other hand, if it's not written out, then someone could say you can't say no because it's not in the regs.
Well, it does say in this document, you can only have, one farmer can only have up to 3 acres.
So that's what this line is saying, that no one can have more than 3.
Right, so if you have somebody else that wants to get involved with them from that same family, and so they go in and they try to get a transfer from an existing farmer.
No, what I'm saying is, what if you have 2 people who are working for the same company? And that company now has 6 acres,
Or 5 people.
or whatever. I can only count it for 2 at this late night. So I'd like town council to look at that.
That
That's all
could
I'm
be a
saying.
question on the application, are you affiliated in any way with
Something like
the
that.
license holder?
Yeah.
Because our
Something like
intent
that.
is to keep it to.
So, to Craig's point, then the granting authority, selectmen, can decide whether that's relevant or not. But I think the information should be there. That's a good point.
So your scenario there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every town has a sentence, it just doesn't work, so.
Yeah.
And maybe we're smarter.
Yeah, right.
Sure we are.
I don't know about that, but.
Don't laugh.
So-
It could happen.
So let's have town council look at that somehow.
Okay, 5-4 moratorium.
Well, my only comment here is back to the transfer and then whether, because that means whether a pre-qualified list would be necessary or not. So we can discuss that later. If the transfer is allowed, I'm okay with this to a first order.
Mike, you okay with E?
Which one?
E.
You're in charge of it, Mike.
What time is it?
No cost.
He's gonna retire from one town.
So Mike, you're good with E on this?
You're going to manage it, no.
At this point, I'll have my comments, not tonight.
I mean, the committee would manage it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be solely of my hand, I can tell you that.
So my
I know a lot of people in here do it,
Well-
not one person making those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, we
It's
can,
not fair.
But what's involved with managing the list? That's what I understand.
Oh, managing the list, yeah, you can call that pre-qualified list or a wait list, you can call whatever you want, that's fine.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, but as far as like, who's qualified or not?
No, just saying that you'll keep the list
You will
and
manage
maintain the list.
yeah.
I do,
Because we have a $25 a year fee to be on the list,
It's a spreadsheet.
which ideally is there to kind of cut down on people just throwing their name in there and leaving it there. And then you have 100 people on the list.
And later on, Mike, it says, I believe, that the list must be available for people to review. So I guess we would post it,
So
similar
it
to
would be
the
posted-
boring waiting list that we have now.
Online.
Exactly.
Okay.
We'll post it online and, where you post it.
Okay.
Is the $25 annual fee state run, or is that something we can change if we wanted to?
You could change that if you want, it is not a state.
What'd you say, Dave, $2,500?
There goes the waiting list.
Problem solved.
Budget solved.
Yeah.
So do you have a suggestion for that being higher?
I mean, if it links to the transferability, if people could be on that list and it's going to actually happen, then why not? But if it's, we've heard stories of other towns where they're on a list and their name never comes up. So if that's the case, it would be kind of cruel to charge them $25.
Yeah, true, yeah.
So
Yeah.
either we handle the transferability question and then that could be looked at as a source of income.
Whether there's transferability or not, if you get 5 successful farmers who are in this for the long haul, whether there's transferability or not, they'll be in place for 20, 30, 40 years.
That's
Right,
largely, that's largely true.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at I think it's 30 farmers in Duxbury, and there's been like just 5 or 6 transfers, all, I'll use the word acquisitions, to double your farm size. So most of the farmers, I'd say 80% of them have been there for 20 years.
So that's why we're debating this, like, we're blue in the face, and yet it's not gonna, in the end, it's not gonna even be a huge deal, probably, you know.
And unlike Duxbury, you get part of us.
Okay, evidence of productivity, 6.0.
I had a question, who performs?
What sections?
6.0.
6.0, okay, great.
Where am I going?
You're perfect right there.
Who performs the annual review for investment and productivity?
They have to submit,
They submit, it's a form. They would
That's to the reports.
Their annual reports, again, we would post them online and they would submit them.
To the shellfish constable collectively?
Yep.
And he's looking for $10,000 for investment and $10,000 for productivity?
That's how it's written, or
and we have to decide whether it's labor or not.
Yeah,
And I think we talked about it not being.
Well, right, because the word gear needs to be defined.
Right, that's in
Right.
the, we discussed that.
Right.
We also discussed-
Patent by us, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think the word labor should be added, right?
No,
No?
I think we're saying
10,000
this year.
equipment and
See
gear.
here.
That's it.
That's it. Whatever it costs you to do it. You may not pay anything, labor, you may do it yourself.
No, I know that, but you may hire someone.
And that's great. But it
But
has
should
to
that
be
be in
separate from the $10,000.
Yeah.
$1,000 is quick if you're paying.
And we kind of discussed that too, the equipment, I mean, you're gonna need a boat of some sort.
Right.
You're not walking around with how they cut your clothes.
But every year, every year is $10,000. Could be fuel for the boat.
Yeah.
Could be insurance for the boat.
Well, a lot of it, they said, is kind of.
Seed, that's what we're looking for, investment in seed.
Right, could be a truck.
Could it be a truck?
Could be a truck.
So
Hey, you gotta pull the boat somehow, right?
No, 10,000 a year.
A little bit of background.
No, I'm serious, I mean, I would, when you work in a definition of gear, I don't have a horse in this race, but I think you need to say, is it only waterborne gear? Or does it include shoreside gear such as truck and stuff like that?
Insurance and all that.
Right.
Because someone could buy a truck, call it a day.
Walking coolers, I mean, you're gonna need all kinds of equipment.
Yeah, yeah.
You're gonna be renting space.
It shouldn't be pretty easy to fulfill the obligation.
Yeah, you're gonna be renting
But-
warehouse
You
space,
need a lot of ice.
Yeah.
ice makers, everything.
Oh, yeah.
Bags.
Okay, we will
Just
draft
define
a
it.
suggestion on here.
Okay?
Yeah.
Those grant reports and all these submissions public, by the way?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
In other words, when all this, these reports that we're requiring that get submitted each year, is that for public review?
If something's not submitted to a town official, it's a
Yes.
public document. It could be. Every person. Within 10 days before.
Does the state require any sort of, like Boston, we have to do technical orders a year, every month?
They do, the state will, that both the towns, this is separate though, the town will have their own report, but the state has their own as well. You have to do two, they look very similar even, but. I'd just like to point out a little bit of background. So the average that we found in the 7, 8 sets of rules and regulations that we found were remarkably lenient, like $1,500, $2,000 per acre. I think 3,000 was the most we saw. Initially, I think we put it to 4,000. Most recently, we upped it to 10,000. I feel that there's still a little bit of discussion left there. In the same conversation that I had with Chris Scituate with the DNF, he felt that, because it was, concerning to me that, first of all, I think the idea is to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and making this successful and representing Scituate in the way that they were chosen by the Board of Selectmen to do. So it's an effort to make sure people are performing at their best and giving it their all. And that if they are not, then the town has the ability to remove them. But as per state law, it's only after 3 consecutive years of failing to meet that threshold that they can be removed. It's not 1, it's not 2, it's 3 consecutive years. And after having talked to Chris, his opinion was that, this is a quote, most towns are lenient in the first few years and then step it up. Because especially in this situation where we're unclear as to what's going to happen. This is a pilot program. We don't know if this is going to be a viable program. we may be pricing certain people out of the market that may not be able to afford that, if they're, and then not just that, it's just not an effective method for ensuring what we're trying to do. He wholeheartedly believes that the business plan is where it's at, that if the business plans are effectively reviewed, that's where we can kind of make sure that the people.
So you're approved, you got your, sorry to jump in here, you got your license.
Yeah.
2 years from now, you go to South Africa for a year and you let the thing sit fallow. We don't want that.
Right,
So
but you have to do that 3 years in a row in order to legally have it removed from you.
Right.
But that stalls the next guy for 3 years.
I don't know, that's abandoned and you haven't submitted your
Yeah, I
reports.
guess that-
I think
yeah,
you're gonna
that-
go different, forget the productivity, you haven't submitted your reports,
Yeah.
and you've basically abandoned the thing and not paid the $25, so.
And any
Most
of those things
folks-
can qualify as a failure for year one, or any 1 year?
Yeah, most of them are not removed based on production or investment, it would be leaving it.
I don't know if we can document this.
Yeah, more administrative.
Maybe we don't want to document to a point where you're trying to solve a 1% problem. I mean, how many people are going to go to Africa and whatever?
No, they just sell you oysters. But it's also more of saying leniency. Leniency is also like selective enforcement.
Right.
You can't do that.
Also for the group, if you want to do it, if you go to the clerk at Duxbury, all their documents are public. And if you ask them for their business plan, it fits on an 8x10 piece of paper. It's nothing. So, and I know Scituate is much more difficult than there, but they're not putting a whole lot of weight in the business plan.
To Jamie's point, isn't that covered, Jamie, by your number C there, letter C? The 4th year you get the production, so you're not holding them to any production in years 1 through 3.
Understand, Rick,
Which I think-
Rick, understand that production's only 20,000 oysters.
Correct. So even though.
One of the goals for the town is to reduce the nitrogen.
Yeah.
And Cohasset would be the primary beneficiary for this particular location. But the overall goal is to, from an environmental point of view, so 20,000 oysters per acre isn't really much of a hill to climb for someone, if they're trying to run a successful business.
Yeah, okay.
But it is a pretty good barrier to entry to someone starting out.
Yeah,
That's my
agreed.
only worry, is that it's gonna price some people that may try to
Yeah.
transition from a failing lobster market or whatever, I just didn't want
I mean,
to.
10,000 isn't a lot.
Andrew Slater from Pheasant Hill again. Basically, it's paraphrasing, basically, you want to get the hobbyists out, you want serious people. And the only reason why the number's there is that to get the serious people, not the hobbyists, who might do it for a few months and then ruin it for somebody who didn't get selected and they were first on the list type of thing.
Well,
That's
one other
basically
thing we're trying to
why
do.
it was put that high.
Yeah, and we're trying to prevent other people from coming and buying up the plots and not farming them so that the price of the oyster stays at a certain market level, right?
That won't be too much of a factor based on all the other towns. It's not a town thing, it's more of a regional, or helping the economy thing. I think the price of oysters is dictated by much greater influences than just locally.
Right.
But is $10,000 a lot? I mean, ice, you can spend a lot of money on
It's
ice.
not, I'm just trying to make sure that
Is it
people
per
don't get
acre?
priced out.
Per acre.
For the
Hurry.
pilot, I would say, this is a pilot program, trying to get it going. It's probably fine for this year. If it needs to be adjusted down the road because it's not working, it can be adjusted, right?
Yep.
Next.
Keep going. Annual report. Any questions on annual report?
Keep going.
You okay?
Do you guys want to say something about session? You mentioned, I think you mentioned something.
What about the educational component?
Yeah, I just mentioned that we had added it, we added this prior to the last time, after the last time you all reviewed this. So it might be the first time you've seen this. It's just a non-commercial.
An applicant to do that.
So we had initially intended to carve out from these 32 acres, to have 30 acres set aside for commercial, and then have 2 acres that are specifically set aside for educational purposes.
And none of the pilot program.
I think it should go on at the same time. There's
Yeah,
no
I mean,
reason why it shouldn't.
I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah.
Somebody want.
Yeah, if non-commercial, so that high school teacher want to do something, or
And
center for
CSCR, yeah.
CSCR want to do something.
The
So.
Cohasset Center for Student Coastal Research.
Yeah.
I'm here if anyone has questions about that.
Yeah, this is Susan Bryant. She's one of the heads of this of CCSCR. Is it CCSCR or CSCR?
It's CSCR, and on the
CSCR.
website it's C for Cohasset, Center for Student Coastal Research, but it's open to students from any community, and we have a few Scituate students who are engaged in some research out there already.
And would we want to consider that application to have different requirements?
So that is a good point. It does have different requirements. They shall describe how the project is appropriate and in the best interest of the town. So it would not have the requirements of residency or whatnot. It's best interest of town. And that kind of, I mean, that goes to the whole watershed issue of like what is, if we were to open this up to other waters, you would have North-South River Watershed Association. There's quite a few groups that could benefit the town, but also specifically in the town.
So how do you address this? I mean, it says regarding research and education, and you have different criteria. Don't we have to build that into this so we know what it is that we're proposing? And I guess we completely eliminated anybody from a recreational standpoint.
So, I don't know what they would propose. I mean, they could propose all sorts of research. I don't know that we would want to put a lot of requirements.
Well, Howard, you're just saying it's flexible. I think
We're just giving the flexibility
to the authority.
Yeah, and I'm assuming they would propose possibly even a part of an acre, not a full acre. So a lot of the programs, the other towns that offer this is maybe like a half an acre or a quarter of an acre, that there's research being
But
done.
it seems like we precluded the recreational person.
But I think by definition, I don't think they want it.
Yeah, the recreational scene, Mike can explain that. I mean, that's.
Yeah, so one reason why this area is viable for this type of activity is because there's not a lot of other shellfish that are in that area. So you can't really grow oysters on top of a heavily seeded bed of steamers, because it's all based on density of populations. So this area does have some cohogs and some steamers scattered in, but for a recreational person to go up there, you go up there for 4 hours trying to get a half a bucket. So that's why it's conducive for this.
But could I, as a recreational person, like I could put lobster pots anywhere, could I, if there was an acre set aside for recreation, could I set up, I don't know how to grow oysters, but 2 traps or so, two what do you want?
Really big
Cages.
You would take
Give it a go.
you would get a permit from marine fisheries, no different than a folks in education or research when you get a
Yeah.
permit.
Really?
Same thing, you
Yeah.
still have to have your own permits through us and marine fisheries. Similar like the Rivershed grows mussels on bags in the North River, the South Rivers. So, and they need the permits from marine fisheries as well.
So Howard, it sounds like it's not happening in recreation.
I don't know why we wouldn't, as you said, carve out a spot for the recreational piece.
Mike's saying that in order to do that, I'd have to go through the same process through.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Even the town that do propagation projects has to have a permit. And for the river, we've done it numerous times, we revise co-ops and planted in the rivers, you still have to have a permit. And you gotta sign off the bill of lading and everything, where it's coming from, where it's going. And once that happens, if you're growing contaminated shellfish in another area, you're shutting down everything. So you don't wanna mix, co-mingle apples with oranges. When if you're bringing in an outside product to an area where people are eating stuff, if you're contaminating.
Yeah, oysters are definitely are a very controlled substance or species, whatever.
You want it separate.
There are for many other areas of Scituate that are far more suitable for recreation than this. I think this is specifically for commercial aquaculture and research.
But this is a generic document for all areas, right, as we grow, but right now it's only pertinent to this.
Right, yeah.
Right.
So I
But it
think
can be amended.
we're talking about something different, but you'll be picking up your cages at the end of a year, or like, would you leave anything in right through the winter?
Anybody who is, a sane person will remove all of their actual shellfish
Okay,
from.
so you abandon your plot. The
Well, not
idea-
necessarily.
No, you have your-
If you have substrates that have been, if you have PVC that's been pounded into the ground, like racks for rack and back, those would remain in the racks.
So
like
the
actual
concept
oyster.
of rotating acres is not a viable.
No.
So
it's
leave
not
one
very
open
common.
for recreational, the stuff that's.
The fall through, no,
fall
that's,
through for recreation.
if you have any measure of oysters falling through your bags, then you're not doing it right, basically.
I think to your point too, I think at some point, this committee is looking at the whole recreational aspect as well, to look to expand those areas that are conditionally open, to expand the duration of the season, to expand the areas where we can in fact.
To boost, bolster the seating.
Yeah, why in Duxbury do you go down and get oysters randomly? Why is that?
They have a wild harvest there. They,
And Wellfleet does too.
We would never have it. We would never have
we
it.
wouldn't know. It wouldn't be like
Not
the
there.
flow, the in and out flow is just too much for that. Duxbury, Wareham, Wellfleet, they're all much more protected in the bays, so the oysters will sit there for a while. You may get the odd oyster that sits there. For
Not in this area that we're.
There were Briggs Harbor that we're concerned ourselves with that.
Keep going?
Yep, please do. Section 8.
Okay, so the way I read this is there's now a whole process where the harbor master's involved. We have permitting floats. And it further goes on to talk about this has to go to DMF for approval also. Do I have that right?
Is this part of the same gig? When you're going to DMF the first time, do you piggyback on the float thing?
No, it's a different thing. One is the application for shellfishing. This is regarding the floats.
But is this also like Upweller's 5-year plan?
No.
I think we left it
I
in
don't
there.
ask, 'cause I
I
don't
think
know.
we left it in there for that purpose.
We left it in there for future, because we don't expect any of this.
Right, so it's something,
In the pilot program out there, we
if we're gonna be successful as a town doing this, and we all want this, in the long-term plan, there has to be something like this coming our way. This
Right.
floats and Upwellers.
It
So,
won't be
okay,
the
that's
first
good.
year. It will
Right.
not be the first year, but first 2 years pilot.
I see this Upweller idea is awesome. I mean,
Oh, it's
I would
great.
take 10 docks away.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how big an Upweller
No,
area
you
has
put
to
it on
be
a
for a
dock.
couple acres
You
of,
put it on a dock.
couple acres.
Back up.
It'd be nice if we
Where's it
had,
gonna go?
if we had the old Coast Guard station in Situate Harbor, that'd be a nice spot. We could have a little laboratory right there.
Can you go back to
and
G4?
Upwellers and Educational
G4.
center,
You can't even get
educational
a spot
center, that'd
every
be
day,
beautiful.
let alone an outfall in Scituate Harbor.
There?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
something to look into.
No,
What's that?
It's something to look into.
that's
Oh, yeah,
B4.
yeah.
G as in
Let alone
girl.
an outfall.
You can also use downwellers too, though, because
Yeah.
they're removed from the actual water and
Yeah,
put
the
on the
down,
docks.
the down lower
Further away.
runs off.
Not
A little more.
much room.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so I just had a
Alright, we're
question on G4, right here.
G of what?
Right there.
Same thing, 8.1.G.4. Again, number 4 seems to preclude doing any other aquaculture. Licensee shall not use the bottom or tidal flat for any purpose other than the mooring of floats. That seems to mean you couldn't drive in anything, you couldn't do anything, you couldn't do the rest of your farm.
That gets back to the Chapter 91 10A license that the harbor master have to issue anything with chains, moorings, or floats, that would be under a separate permit. Like somebody wanted to add like a house up there.
Yeah,
A shucking house.
As long as that doesn't mean that they can't do the rest of the agriculture.
No, that's specifically the floats.
Okay.
And there'll be no floats on the initial
No,
Briggs
no.
Harbor.
No.
Okay, so this is built in for future considerations.
For expansion, yeah,
Okay.
for all waters, because we did not do this exclusive to
Okay.
one waterway.
So a lot of this information is, after this is all future, right, all the way down to 8.2.
Private property rights, correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Love breezing through pages.
No, no, right, right.
Keep going?
And this is all Mass General Law, right?
Yes, yes. Are we at 8.3 yet? Where are we?
8.4.
Any questions on 8.4? I know when we get to 8-6, there'll be questions, participation.
8-5, no rights to sublease, any questions?
And
No
here we
rights to
go.
sublease.
How would you know that?
What? Stop, go back to page 5.
How would you know if someone's subleasing it?
I have the permit. I'm the licensee,
I
I've
don't
gone
know,
through
the
all
fraud
the
hotline.
things. And somebody else is managing it,
The Scituate
operating
Shellfish
it, selling it.
Can't legislate morality.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, I mean-
part of this document,
Probably a really hot
there is
tip.
a requirement that if anybody's working a grant, they have to be registered with Mike. So
Right.
if Mike goes out there and finds some guy out there
Oh, yeah.
that's not on pre-registered,
Yeah.
then he can say, why are you out here?
He could be registered, and I guess if he's my employee, that's great, but he's not my employee.
Well, and also it helps support that if you fire somebody, he's out there. And I call you and say, well, Jim Smith's out there. Well, he got released 2 weeks ago, he shouldn't be out there.
Stealing oysters.
Or destroying them.
Yeah.
But your point is, how do you police this and make sure that someone isn't subleasing, not an employee of, but subleasing on someone's farm, which is basically someone running a separate business from the original business that was intended to be out there, yeah.
I think that's.
I guess you could do
that's
some research with the DMF and see if there's any transaction cards that have been, dealing out of there, like actual physical site visits would.
Hold on. This is a policy and a regulation, not an enforcement plan, and not an implementation plan. Your point's valid, but, we're not gonna be telling either Mike or the cops or the, or whoever how to do it. We're just saying you can't do it.
Right. And it's possible to make it out.
When you submit your annual report, you're signing the report. If someone else is doing the work, that's illegal.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Right, that's enforcement. Rick is right. Keep
comes
moving.
down to fraud.
Keep moving, rules.
Okay, 8.6, transfer.
All right, well, I've already said what I was gonna say an hour ago. By mistake too early, but I mean, so I said my point.
So there's two differences here. There's the right to transfer and the right of inheritance.
Yep.
So you want to kick us off on transfer?
Yeah, I said what I said. I don't think we should do it, because I think we need to keep the things fresh. I think if there's a situation arises where the original person or the company is unable to make it work, or chooses, or what have you, then it's time just to go back into the pool and let the other 15 groups out there potentially compete.
So you're not for inheritance either?
Well,
We'll take
we
one at
have
a
a
time.
Yeah,
Can we take one at a time?
We'll take one at a time, because I think there needs to be some inheritance, my personal view, so just as not to get into inheritance, but to see where I'm going with it. I'm not total hard ass, for lack of a better word, that,
Okay, so-
I break my knee and that's it, you're gone. I don't mean that.
So the inheritance for MGL
Wait,
is shall.
don't we
I know we're
transfer?
at transfer, but there is a difference in.
Yeah, I get it.
There's a difference in MGL where right to inherit, that it says shall.
Yes.
So, I don't know that we can say you can't inherit. Versus right to transfer does say may. Do you see where I'm?
Right.
So we have the
Correct.
ability.
I get that, but-
I know you do it one by one, but there is a state law difference.
Is there also?
Right. So,
On the inheritance, is there also a definition, cousin, second cousin?
There is a
Yeah, it's in there.
hold on. Why don't we stay with transfer?
Okay.
The transfer is sale,
Subject.
right? You're selling.
No.
It's not sale.
No,
It may or
May not be.
There's no way of confirming a sale.
absolutely,
You what?
it is not.
What do you mean it's not?
The definition of a transfer is not a sale.
It's transfer.
It's a gift, it's a
Could be a
gift.
sale.
It's broader than sale.
Right.
Any
Let me
transfer.
make sure I understand. So, a transfer.
Wish you were there last night, this would have been
Dave and
fun.
I, we're our two people living in Scituate, we're running this thing, and we want out. Can I give it to this guy?
Yes. If I'm on the list,
If you're on the list. If you're on the pre-approved list.
and it's approved.
But I can pick
It's
you
got to be
from that
approved by the
list.
selectmen.
You could be number 2,000 on that list,
Yep.
and Dave and
Yes.
I can
Yes.
reach down into that list and pick you out.
Okay, and I'll tell you why that's good.
Tell me why that's good.
Is because you, as the initial investor, need some protection. You've put a lot of equipment in the ground,
Yep.
you've bought a lot of seed, things happen. You know,
I
disability,
understand that.
You built a business.
whatever, you've built a business up. Now, the transfer is just the name going from you to me. There could be a company involved
I understand.
that is different from there, but that is to protect the whole pilot project. It's to protect the Scituate so that you are transferring to someone who's going to do their very best to uphold what you've done or even better.
Okay, so I'll counter with you on this. So the counter to that is there's no finances involved, so I'm not getting any financial protection from picking you out of the state.
Possibly not.
Right? And secondly, if I were the town, I wouldn't want two schmucks like Dave and Rick picking it out because we might not be making a decision based on the best interest of the town. I want the licensing authority to have that responsibility.
That's where they come into play.
That's the select, that's the licensing authority.
They have the final
So
say.
why even have them?
That's
Why even go through that as an initial step? I'd much rather have it just go right out into the
You've already
pit.
been picked.
Because that person has to have that control. The business owner should be afforded that control, just like any other business in town.
They're not getting any money out of it.
Well, you could be selling your spot, not
Your equipment?
but your walk-in cooler,
Your equipment.
facility,
Your equipment,
your office,
yeah. And so it's entirely for the
your name
protection
brand.
of the people getting in
All right,
this.
that's all right, because you're not selling
You
that.
can sell your XYZ of Scituate oyster.
Yeah.
Because everyone's
Can't
gonna
sell a
choose
mooring in
XYZ.
Situate, however, those have to be transferred, it should be the same.
No,
Moorings are
moorings go
different.
back to the town.
The spot goes back to the town, the tackle
The
belongs to
tackle
the
goes.
owner.
So the spot goes back, so I would think it should be exactly that way. The spot goes back to the town, and then,
Say that?
You take the tackle.
and
But
then
it does,
I could
this is the
still,
thing, it
you know, I
does.
could still choose to sell you, say you win from the town again, I could still sell the equipment to you, but I'm not selling
pennies on the dollar.
spot.
They so choose, for pennies on the dollar.
Absolutely
You're
right.
basically beholden to them.
That's right.
I mean, I understand.
So we put this, so say 30 years have gone by and I was fortunate enough to be awarded a farm. And, my Scituate Oyster Company is, sponsored the league teams and has been present at every Heritage Days and shucked my little buns off. And I'm done. I want to transfer it to John Doe, who's been working for me since he was 20 years old and is now 45 years old, 50 years old. If you don't allow transferability, I cannot do that.
That's correct.
Now, why not allow the Board of Selectmen to be able to make that decision on a case-by-case basis as per MGL? Why not allow that?
Well-
Why is that? So why does it have to go back to a list? Any town that has a wait list, basically, it's not a very good working model. It doesn't, it's.
Well, if Timmy Lopes wants to get out of a certain time frame of go green, right, at the end of his time, for example, it goes back to the town goes to see if.
But
it can
that's
get
a piece of land. This is
Yeah,
something
okay.
that's a work.
This is the right, but this is the right, it's not perfect, I agree, but this is the right to a piece of land.
Right, but can I
And
say,
Tim Lopes doesn't own the go green spot. He owns the right to use that spot. It is still the town's land.
Rick, could Go Green sell the business that's on that spot?
No, I don't think
Couldn't
so.
they?
You sell the business, but the lease is not transferable.
Yeah,
Correct.
could they go in front of the board of selectmen and ask for a transfer?
Yes,
It's
it goes-
non-transferable, it's written in the lease, non-transferable.
Non-transferable.
But I just feel like it's apples and oranges still. So could Go Green, could it go pretty much on many other different kinds of pieces of land in Scituate? Probably could. Can you farm oysters anywhere else but Riggs Harbor? No. It's not, it's very different.
You're absolutely right on that, but I don't see that as a differentiator.
Just further to the Go Green discussion, also, the town is not funding Go Green to be successful, whereas oyster farming is going to be funded for a long time. We're going to lose, despite what the edict was from the gentleman who left. It's going to be very hard to break even, but it's impossible. So the town's going to be funding this effort and then you can sell the right to the land. I have a problem at many levels.
Lose money, the town is going to be making money.
Because we just spent a lot of time discussing how the 25 bucks per acre is never going to pay for the investments.
You won't find
Upwellers,
successful
docks.
people applying for these farms if they're being told that when they want to walk away, they have no exit strategy. They have no control over what their legacy, where their legacy goes.
Well, I think we just have to run that experiment, because I disagree, because I think there's other people out there that would be chomping at the bit.
I don't
Sure,
think so.
then they should be here
I
now.
don't think so.
They should be here now.
You're
They should
wrong.
get in at this level.
You're
But
totally
they
wrong.
can't.
Why not?
They can't get in at this level because there's more people than there are spots.
There's only 7 spots that are ever going to be available, or
Right.
10 spots, whatever it is.
And I think people are paying 25 or whatever a year to be on the list. If they're paying 25 a year to be on the list, they could conceivably never get the list to move down.
The town isn't funding.
Right, let's put it this way. How many people who want an oyster farm do not want transferability? Who is going to put in an application without transferability? Anyone here?
That's really not relevant right now because we don't have the whole town here, so.
I would tell you right now, you've got 90% of the people that are going to put applications in, who've been at this meeting.
And that might be right, and that might be wrong, but that's not a scientific study right now.
No,
Number one.
but
Number
I'm
two-
putting it up. No one's putting up their hand.
Falmouth did the same experiment. They had people respond, and they cannot transfer, and that was the public-private endeavor they had right now. They had an RFP, they had people participated, they selected 3 growers. Those growers have 3 years, and then it reverts back to the town. So, there are
That's not
places that
exactly
this has been done. What?
So each farmer gets 3 years to farm oysters and then they're done?
I don't know all the ins and outs, but you know people down in Falmouth, you can call them up and ask them about exactly what the program is. I'm telling you that they went to a public-private endeavor, and they put out an RFP.
I'd have to familiarize myself with that.
Yeah, but also-
It takes 3 years to even grow.
So
Yeah,
my point
and
is,
also-
it was subscribed to, the RFP, they went through it, they picked 3 people out of it. So, I'm not sure.
Hold on, but Brian, I'm disagreeing a little bit with you on this, because I see Jamie's point, and that gets into the whole renewal process. Because you could have someone do the 3 years for the pilot or not, or a 5-year, or whatever it is, and then they can apply for renewal back to the licensing board, to the authority, and then you're fine. So you're kind of talking about renewal. And I don't think personally that at the end of the first 3 years, it goes right back into the pool, because you have made that capital investment, and then you can get into a renewal process. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you're done.
In the end, yeah.
Yeah, you're done. And it might be for horrible reasons that are health-related or what have you, or it might be just for, it's 35 years from now,
Right.
and you're done. I just think that should go back to the town.
That would be in the very, very small minority, not just in towns in this state, but in states.
I understand.
In some states, it's actually, like Virginia, it's state-run. It actually, there's a cost associated with this.
Yeah.
$500,000 for a transfer,
Yeah.
for each transfer.
Well, see there, there's a cost associated with it, and this guy actually has to come up with 500 grand to do it. I mean, that is a sell, because you're selling you're selling the whole kit and caboodle. Here, we're not talking about that. I'd still be able to sell him my material, and okay, pennies on the dollar, yeah, I mean, if you drive the car off the lot, it's cut the price by half, but there are gonna be other people out there. If I want, if he wants it and he wants it, and, then you're gonna start getting to all,
Other towns.
they could buy the stuff.
Why?
Let me ask you this, is there any difference in your feeling, and everybody's feeling that is tending against the transferability, if 2 things could happen? Number 1, if the town could participate in the financial gain in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure if Mass General law requires that. You sell you grew a great business, and it's worth, let's just say, $1 million. And somebody's going to give you $1 million, random person is going to give you $1 million for that. If the town can participate in sharing that revenue.
I don't think you can sell them, can you?
No, it would be the
Sell
assets
stuff.
associated.
You can sell stuff, you can't sell the right. Yeah, you can't sell the license.
And the
Yeah,
second
can't sell-
part,
so you can't sell the
and the second part of that is, if the town can choose who that person could be.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's how you, I mean.
That's what I'm saying. I'm exactly
So
saying.
you're saying the guy that works for you, and he is your first choice in who to sell it to. But if you want to get out, and it's going to be sold, and if the town has 6 people that are pre-qualified, the town says, that's a great kid, but this guy is a much better choice.
What if he's one of the 6 qualified?
And he's got to be one of the 6 qualified, and this guy's one of the 6 qualified, but the town says, one second, you want out, Jamie? And there's a value to your sales. There's 2 options here, 2 questions I'm asking. Number 1, is there a way the town can participate in the financial gain of that transfer? And can the town participate in choosing the group that's transferred to? Does that change the anti-transfer people's opinion?
A broker's fee?
Maybe a broker's fee, or maybe having a choice on who gets sold.
Well, it says right there,
Under
on 8.6A,
They have to be approved.
granted may be transferred with the approval of the licensing authority. The licensing authority is the Board of Selectmen. So indeed, they do have the power to say
Not
yes
choose.
or to say no.
They do, they do.
But not choose. Doesn't
Not
say
choose.
I want them to have a choice and approve. I mean,
Well, by denying that, that would give
I'm
them the
thinking-
choice of a second
say it again.
transferee.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Sean.
Show me where a town has denied a transfer and it was upheld. Can you do that?
What do you mean?
You have to call around all the towns.
And the reason I say that, it's a little bit different. It's very difficult for the Board of Selectmen to stop a transfer of a liquor license.
Right.
Unless I'm selling to David and he's got a criminal background, then yeah, we can stop it, but very difficult to stop it.
That's
So
the equation that I would rather,
Yeah, what-
compare it to. It should be compared to Go Green, it should be compared to a liquor license.
So
basically.
in 20 years, Duxbury's had just 5 transfers.
In 20 years, exactly.
And so we're arguing about the 1% problem, in my view. And I know you all say you won't apply if this is not in there. I say you will, because you'll be there for 20 years, 30 years.
It's gonna take a lot of years to
Yeah.
get your money back. I mean, you're
Oh,
not-
sure.
5 transfers, and by the way, and by the way,
Your plan to really, like, once you get rock and rolling, it's gonna be like 5-7 years in, and you know what's going on, you know the season.
Yeah, but 25 years from now, I understand
Also-
Jamie wants to sell it.
nobody sold to somebody
I want to give it to
working.
somebody I trust. It's less about the sale. It's more about giving it to somebody that I want to carry on the legacy.
I
I
don't
got
know.
I'm being truthful with you there.
What if he built a brand?
And he
And I just transfer it to someone, and I don't like you, so you can't have my brand. Where does Scituate oysters go? They disappeared. Well,
I don't
I'm gonna transfer it to the guy I wanted, the guy I trusted.
As the owner of the company.
Well,
Yeah.
by the
you
way,
know,
by the way, none of,
Island Creek is, nationwide, Duxbury oysters, right? He built a brand.
and,
And he had
and,
15
and,
acres.
right,
That
so,
brand's worth something, right? Everyone knows
So-
brand's worth something.
but to that point, so none of these transfers were sold to someone working for them. They were sold to Island Creek and other people, and I use the word sold, acquired. So it's not like someone within is gonna come up and gonna buy it or acquire it. It's other companies becoming larger. So Duxbury has also the 3-acre maximum. Island Creek's got 15.
But that's your fear, is other companies getting larger. So if the Board of Selectmen have say over that, they can stop that from happening.
Back to Sean's point, why don't they?
When you can't.
Then back to, I can't remember whose point it was, but figuring out that a company can't have 15 acres.
Well, yeah, we
We
have.
talked about that before.
Yeah, but I only have 3.
Apparently,
Well,
Dux-
no,
I
a
actually
person
thought
can
you
have
can't-
3. We talked about a
So-
person, Island Creek has like
15.
The thing with Island Creek is they have different brand names, so like, it's not all Island Creek oysters, they have like Unlimited, or, on whatever it is.
No, Sammy Summer.
Well, they also buy everyone else's oysters.
Yeah, and they buy my oysters, yeah.
So
they're
They
wholesale.
buy them from Maryland and sell them as Island Creeks.
Right.
Yes.
Boston, and then
So-
there's Fred
so-
Vibrio and all this
Yes.
other crazy stuff. And there's so much crazy environmental stuff that we're probably gonna be up against, especially growing up there. There's like these eco-geologist freaks out there that think these oysters are gonna damage the bedrock and the rock and everything else up there. I mean, it's a real thing, and who knows? I mean,
So I understand the point about Island Creek or whatever, some company buying 15 is not motivating. I think it's a separate issue, it's a good issue, and it can be worked out. That's not motivating my point about transferability. My point about transferability is purely philosophical
Fairness.
and purely approachability and allowing new people in after X number of years. I admit it is a small number of times it's going to happen, but I just think when that precious slot comes up, I think the town should make that decision, and the current holder should be completely uninvolved.
But I think that it can still
It's just a
happen
philosophical.
under that, I mean, to your philosophical point, the person working on that farm as like my foreman, and eventually I transferred to him, he was able to achieve what you are talking about, not from waiting on a list, probably going off and becoming a dentist and completely forgetting that he even put himself on that list, save the $25 a year he has to spend. But the person who was working for me and eventually had to transfer to him actively pursued that. You know, there'll be 5 farms, maybe 10 farms, where, you know, that what you just said can happen, but it happens more organically. It doesn't happen out of, you know, waiting for something to come along. It may never come along because maybe these 5 farms exist for so long, you know,
Sure. No, I see
in
that
their
point.
current states.
No, I see that point, but I would rather trust that decision to be in the hands of the town, fully informed by the fact that your foreman, who's worked there for 20 years, has done a great job. You're writing a letter of support. The selectmen are well aware of that strong relationship and the demonstrated prior successes, but it's their decision.
Well, it is.
It is, it's right there.
No,
The
that's the right to
license,
deny.
licensing
That's the right to
authority.
deny, which is different
No,
from...
the approval.
So the
is-
approval of the licensing authority is the Board of Selectmen in this case.
Is this even the actual?
But they have no way to decline it. There's no way for you to.
Yeah.
Tonight,
Yeah.
Hey,
It,
Rick,
this is MGL.
Rick,
But if you just take the, if you don't even have a right to transfer, and you just instead simply say, at the termination of it, you know, whatever, it reverts back to the town, you don't need any of the rest, you don't get into the point Sean's making about it being a right to deny, or you have to overturn a transfer and all that. It's just much more clean. It's just my preference. I don't know if I'm going to be outvoted, and we just advise the board anyway.
So you're saying you'd rather have the right to deny?
No, it's not even in there.
It's not even there.
It's not even, cannot transfer.
Right, see.
And that's what I think Rick's talking
Our
about.
board is not.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And we're...
Let's move forward and they can make the decision.
yeah, so let me ask, Rick, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Where Dave said it's a 1% problem.
Yeah.
Flip it on its head, say, allow transfers because it's only a 1% issue. And then when it does happen 25 years from now, you can deal with it then.
Because it's in the document.
Yeah, right.
I would like to say, Rick, though, I really enjoyed this back and forth much more than the one that we had a month ago. It's been much more. No, well, without our committee.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This was
No,
much more
it's a
productive.
very interesting, it's not a right
The
answer.
most controversial part of
Piece
this.
of it, yeah.
I mean, we could put a right to deny if that would.
That's what it is.
There's right there.
That's all
With
it
the
is. That's
approval.
exactly what that
Right
is.
to
You can't do it
approve is different
without
from
the
a
right of
to
approval.
deny.
It's written there. And
I
it's-
do not
remember,
approve.
this is not a bylaw.
I do
It's
not approve.
a rule and regulation that can be amended.
We got pretty much through this now.
Is there any towns that, okay, suppose there's 10 or 12 farms. Somebody's trying to get out, Dave's trying to get out, they're trying to get out. They're gonna go to somebody that the rest of the farmers may not want in there. Do they have any input?
Well, I guess that's something that could be discussed during the ongoing, like, this board isn't going away. You know what I mean? This will be, the Shellfish Advisory
Are there
Committee.
like an association amongst the farmers that
Selectmen
approach
would check
you
with.
or meet with the selectmen for this transfer approval?
Good point, Doug.
That's a good point.
It is a good point. It's a very good point. We do have references in the applications.
Loosey goosey.
And you wouldn't have an association with
Yeah,
the pilot program.
yeah, but I mean, I think it's a good point too for enforcement, because that's what
If
the
the selectmen
state
don't
and
know the
people
person
tell
at
us.
all.
It's easier to enforce when everyone's getting along out there if there's a.
Well, yeah, maybe you have a growers association that has a say.
Well, what-
I think guys do this time.
Would a lobster license be a
That's a good,
analogy? You can transfer a lobster license, you can sell a lobster license.
Because there's a big ocean.
I think, yeah, I think.
But not the,
Not as
not the
much.
land
Not
under.
as restricted.
What?
There's a much higher turnover, I think, I would suspect, only eating lobsters, that's all I know about it. But there's much more areas to do it.
But there's a limited number of
Yeah,
licenses.
but
So more crowd.
it's a different.
It's actually more crowded. It's a lot more crowded.
Yeah, but it's
Commercial shellfishing and commercial lobster or any sort of fishing, you're in the same regulations, it's the same transferability of licensing, it's all the same.
But except we're talking about the transferability of the piece of right.
We're just talking about a right to use a piece of
I
land.
know you almost need like a couple of year experience to do a transfer, maybe. You know, like that's.
Like up in Maine with the lobstermen there, you gotta work on deck and then they give you 100 tags. And the more time you spend as an apprentice on a lobster boat, the more tags you get up until you get 800 tags, 800 traps. So it's
And then
like
you get a
an
license
apprenticeship
and
program.
stuff?
Yeah. And then there's also areas up there where there's one guy in, one guy out. And then there's other places up there where, and it's somewhat self-regulated, where it's 2 out before they let one guy in.
In Maine, there's a 20-year wait list right now for a lobster permit.
Yeah, they police it pretty heavy.
If you're 8 years old, if you got on the, you can get on the list and get lobster permits when you're 8 years old. If when you come of age and you're 18 years old, if you still are interested in being a commercial farmer, you automatically jump before everybody else on the list who's been on there since they were an adult, yeah.
Well, you also have to qualify to have a certain amount of years.
Yeah, so that reminds me, so what you were just talking about, that's part of our transferability, was that it's to anybody who it would have been originally awarded to, which is somebody who has been pre-qualified by the Board of Selectmen, has submitted a business plan, is somebody that the Board of Selectmen trusts and feel comfortable with moving forward with. So it is in there. It's just, you gotta peel back the
This has been a 3-month debate. I don't think we're gonna come.
It's not our decision to make, ultimately, it's a board decision, so.
The debate is something that really is kind of a moot point because it ultimately comes up in front of the
Right.
board.
So let's move on.
I mean, Rick, your
Yeah, Sean, we're not trying to
philosophical
kick
thing
the
is
can
nice.
down the
I
road.
know a lot of philosophical things that I get hung up on, but at the end of the day, they make the decision.
Yep.
So
Well,
you
we're
can
just
feel
figuring
warm and
how to
fuzzy
advise
about
them.
it, or you can be like, this sucks, but it's still gonna go in front of the
Right, of course.
Discussing what's
Just trying to vet it out, because we had to vote on it with waterways, so we know where it stands and how we recommend to them.
And I said this a while ago. I want to keep hearing it because I told you guys that I think I know the board pretty well. So you guys need to keep scrimmaging and maybe convince me to change my mind. I said right from the beginning, I was all in favor of selling moorings, buying and selling them. I think it's a great idea. This is somewhat similar. You change my mind and who knows, I might be able to get the other two.
We've been trying.
No, but this is, it's a lot of great dialogue. You said it earlier, and I am just listening to it all, and just trying to weigh everything out.
And it's on video too, so you can go back.
Yeah, you can go to.
Greatest hits.
Instead of watching the Patriots on
Hopefully the
Sunday.
sound is right.
Is this much different than Dave Haley's gonna sell his whole operation? Boat, license, everything. And he's got a trawl that isn't just a honey hole that just produces 5 pounds per pot, 12 months a year. He can't transfer that and say that goes with the boat. And because if David or one of these other guys, they move right in, they can't sell that piece of bottom. So I ran this by a couple of people that know nothing about this. And I just kind of gave them a quick synopsis, $25 a year. Should they be able to transfer it? Money involved, maybe not money involved. I could just imagine if this goes to town meeting, I'm just saying what the outcry would be. It's, disagree with me or not, but you need to keep this dialogue going.
Question along the side? No? Just stretching? Falling asleep?
Okay.
All right.
All right, so I think,
We got like 15
we vote. I think we, David?
I would just,
You're stretching, what are you doing here?
I'm not standing up.
You're not standing up?
David Hoffman, Clap Road, Scituate. there is some benefit to the transferability in the fact that if want to get out and Rick wants to get in, he has an opportunity to take over something that's already running and not have to spend 2 or 3 years getting the product up. So think in the fact of somebody getting out of the business and transferring to a pre-qualified candidate, okay? You're not selling, you can't sell the land, that's not even part of it. It's everything that's going on with that. And I think there is there's a lot of value to taking over something that's already running versus me going in, stripping everything off the plot, back to zero.
3-year gap. 3-year gap until you have more oysters.
So now I have product that I have to sell, whatever's going on there, and then somebody else is coming in and has to start back up again. There's some benefit to that versus starting from scratch. So I think
Why do you assume you can't sell the incoming person your equipment? And
I never said
Stop.
They don't have a choice.
I never said I could. I'm just saying is,
It-
right now, when you get a mooring assigned to you, and it was my mooring, I have the right to sell you my tackle, you have the option to buy it.
Right.
You can choose not to. I'm just saying.
Your view would be a worst-case scenario, I agree with you, it'd be difficult. But you could also sell your mooring, your equipment to the incoming person, so, anyway.
But if you've only got one designated buyer for all your stuff, and you're gonna say, all right, I need $100,000 for all these oysters and these cages and stuff, and the kid's going, yeah, I got like $15 in my pocket. But I got my name's on the list, and he's the only one that has a chance to buy it. You're shit out of luck.
He's not the only one that.
I don't think anyone else.
He's unable to buy it, he's unable to make it work. He's unable to spend the $10K up front to do it,
All right,
he's
so he
not buying
spent the
it.
$10K just to get in.
Yeah.
He bought into the pot. Now he looks at you and you got $100,000 worth of stuff there, and the kid's going, well, I just spent my last $10,000 to get into the pot. I don't have the 100 to buy your stuff.
Sure, those points are absolutely valid, but I don't think they're immediately relevant to who's making the selection. My point is I don't like the selection being made by the incumbent, and I'm trying to get it so the selection is made by the town. So the point about what to do with the, pardon?
How come it can't be made by both? I decided to sell to Dave, the way it's written, Dave then has to turn around and go to the town and get the sign off from the town, so.
Right.
And both parties are involved in the decision.
And then that gets into the point about
And
overturning.
everybody's
the
getting what they
transfer.
want at that point. The town gets the
So I
farmer
think-
they want or not, and the seller gets the
Right.
farmer they want or not.
Right, but I think we've talked about that in terms of is that written in the positive or written in the negative? So,
Well, like the moorings, when I bought my first boat,
We don't even,
we had to.
let's just move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
There was a 2-year transfer
Let's move on.
Are there?
There's a lot to consider.
Let's move on.
Why don't we do that?
You just have 10 minutes before I have to kick us out, so I think this is great. I don't see that we just have time for it.
So we're gonna jump to 8.7, because that one should be another exciting one.
I think that is controlled by
Well, I mean, it's Mass General Law, so
No, we
I
don't
mean,
inherit,
we
you have to
cannot,
define who can inherit
But
we cannot change that, except for
Is
you
B?
can change
Council should
C.
be
C
agreeable.
is not Mass General Law. C is an
Spouse and
attempt to protect the town such that we would actually know who is responsible, what deceased, who's the new person, and submit updated insurance information.
But is it only upon death? So
Yes.
could a father retire and pass?
No, it's not.
Which is why we want transfer, because I shouldn't have to off myself to give my farm to my son.
Some people get like that.
So it's only
Touche.
upon death, and they've defined spouse, son, daughter, mother, father.
is
So it's
B,
immediate, that's the definition of immediate family in Mass General.
so MGL, so B is MGL as well?
A and B are MGL, C is our attempt at adding.
Moving things along, I guess.
30 days is pretty quick.
Yeah, is it like 60?
We said that before.
We did.
60, okay?
Quarter year.
Go with 60.
I think 91, 20 is
Yeah.
fair.
So that, take that, there should be 90 days.
So what was that then? What number was
90
that?
I'd consider longer than
Business days,
60.
or is that consecutive calendar days? I mean,
30 days, 90 days, all right.
Calendar days or business?
It's days, and MGL uses days, so we're trying,
Yeah.
desperately trying to be consistent with MGL.
Dog days.
Doug.
All right,
Marking the boundaries. What's the matter?
These are all boilerplate.
I mean, this is just like.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure nobody on
Does
paid
anyone-
or
The audience?
the audience, because we're on the home stretch.
Yes, we are.
Marking and movable equipment.
Okay, so
Keep scrolling, Craig.
in 8.9.c, you just want to pass a quick one.
You want me to go back?
Please.
You can't go back.
It's a quick one, I promise. Good? So one of the things that we had talked about with the Board of Selectmen, Sean, was that there be some type of bond or surety or something that if somebody abandons the property, the town doesn't get stuck with having to go, the cost associated with going
And
and,
that happens all the time to the harbor master, he has to pull the block. But the block is worth something, so he sells it. I
Does
think
he have no way of, historically, has he not been able
I
to
don't,
keep those
I don't
funds?
know for sure, but I don't think so.
He was here.
If he
So we-
was here, he could tell us, yeah.
Easy to ask him about.
so the point being, not having a bond, not having something means that the town will bear the cost to remove it.
Or should
Can I
sell.
ask you a question? Worst, JD,
Yes.
this happens, worst case scenario. Is it a liability or is it an asset? Worst case.
The town takes it over.
It's an
Yeah.
asset,
It's an
it's not a
asset.
liability.
It has a value that you could put on
Okay.
Craigslist and make, you know what I mean?
So-
We're
Like,
gonna
We're
make
neighboring
money.
farmers.
we're neighboring
Yeah.
farmers, yeah.
Except for the storm damage when they're all laying up on the beach, including Montana.
But unlike lobster tracks, they don't move around, if done properly, they don't move around as much as a
Well,
lobster.
that's actually addressed also in here,
Yep.
and during storm damage, I believe there's
Same thing.
15 days to remove, and they're subject to fines, right?
Yes.
B and subject.
I think the bond is
Right.
to cover that.
I
The
think it's
retrieval.
I think it comes back to it's an asset.
If that's the case, is a bond really necessary?
I don't,
That's what the
we as
insurance
a
is
committee
about.
did not think.
6-minute warning.
Sean, why not? Why would it be any different than you're building a road and you ask for a bond in the event that the contractor doesn't complete it properly? If the material ends up on the shore and that...
Well, yeah, stop short of that, if it's just intact still, that's why I asked Jamie, is there any value there? That's the point I was trying to make, and, if a building gets halfway done and bails out, this is an expense to the town, and they have to finish it, but is there really, and I'm asking, is there an expense to the town if a guy leaves his cages and product there at any state? Can someone benefit by that?
I was just gonna say, I can tell you right now that if stuff is left there for more than 15 days, it will be gone, and it will be taken by the farmers, because there is a value associated with it. I'm not saying that there should or shouldn't be a bond, I'm just giving you real-world application.
Yeah, poaching.
Not poaching, just like if it's not clearly marked. So if it's up on the farm, like if it's up on the beach, farmers will retrieve it, and if they know who it belongs to, they will return it to their owner, at least in my experience where we are. And if they can't find who owns it, it's yours.
The other farmers will know it, but if it's abandoned, if one guy's like, I'm done, I'm out of here,
Yeah.
All right.
Of course.
For this
Action buffers?
Go on.
This is all LGL.
So this is all MGL?
Yeah,
It's really all home stretch.
So is...
And the fines are all
hold on.
too low, but it's all LGL.
Is 9.2B MGL?
9.2.
B is in boy, or D is in dog?
B as in boy?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Because that says cross-examine any witnesses and present witnesses, and so I'm imagining a
Right.
selectman's
Clearly, I
hearing.
didn't write that, right?
I'm imagining a selectman hearing where there's a person trying to testify to the selectman, and then the other person's lawyer just starts ripping them to shreds.
Well, I will check.
As a
with-
direct cross-examine.
we will check again if it's MGL.
Okay.
Keep going.
Keep going.
30.
Go on, Craig. Liability to town. Rick, did you have something in this?
The only thing I had was a sort of a thing, and this is a little specific to this spot, I acknowledge, but dredging and access of liability to town. Let's say this all goes through and so on, and then Cohasset says, we don't want you using the boat ramp, or Cohasset doesn't dredge enough, or something like that. Is the town of Scituate, because we've signed this with you and saying, yeah, we support this and we go, and then Cohasset undermines it, could you in theory come after the town by saying, hey, look, you guys gotta go after Cohasset. You said we can do this other town isn't allowing it. They're barring us from the boat ramp, they're barring the dredging. You know?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
That's a good, we'll check, but that's a follow-up to a lawyer,
Yeah.
right?
I don't think so, Rick, because we're not showing them, we're telling them how to run their business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're pretty much gonna have to come by boat somewhere.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are we obligated, this came because we're dredging, my sixth favorite word. You know, are we obligated to dredge? If it needs to be, if it
You wouldn't
changes?
dredge, but you can dredge that area.
No, I know, but just in general.
It's our title, we can't dredge.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I
But
don't.
I mean, this isn't a problem for the first 5 farmers, but if it ends up being 15 farmers, and they're all there at the proper tide to harvest at the same time, all of a sudden you got a little ramp that can handle 8 trucks, and now there's 15 guys.
Which is why we've always wanted to try, we've always thought this was going to be a smaller operation.
I think town council will get into it.
But there
I mean,
are fishermen who plan on using their lobster boats and going through Scituate waters, so it's not up to us to tell them how to do it.
Right.
Agree.
That's where the house systems came into play. Having a trucking house out there working for both tides, rather than coming back every 6 hours. You can stay for 12 and work through the tide, and then that's a whole.
We may eventually allow that, is that an option?
That'd be under a 10 acre.
Yeah.
Or working floor, something like that.
That more than one farmer may use?
I don't see why you couldn't share them.
Great.
10,
11, Craig?
10, 11.
12. Fines are all there, and here's the
Fines
signature
are all
page.
MGL, we all think